I'm just going to take a quick glance at them. And then I just want to talk about this project we're going to do. We'll have a short day, but because I'm going to go, I want to go get that tutorial done that I've been trying to get done for this class for the last month about stylizing on location and designing on location. So I'm going to do that today and or tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And I'm going to put it up. And it's basically going to be what I'm going to want you to do this week, and then we'll talk about it on Saturday. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's kind of, I'd rather do it on location than do it in here. It's not the same. And I want to talk about this project we're going to do, which is your final. Hey, Aaron, are these all from Life?
Yes, they are.
These look pretty good, man. Getting the hang of it?
Yeah, it's I took a lot more time with these because it's you know, since it's all with ink.
Yeah.
I just really had to slow down until I build more confidence.
Yeah, and the speed, like I always said, the speed will happen. You know, you don't really have to worry about that. It's just as you get more and more fluent with it, it just happens.
Yeah. And it came along gradually, but with that just came a lot of detail as well. Just a lot of noodling.
Where was this at?
That was at a classic car dealership in Laverne. I think it was called like All American Classic Cars, but they had a showroom out there, and they had some pretty cool stuff there. And no one was there, so they were, really? Yeah. So they were just fine with me just sitting around drawing.
Yeah. Yeah, those are fun.
And those were at Plains of Fame.
Oh, in Chino?
Yeah.
I miss going to March, man. But I just went to Palm Springs Air Museum. Totally sucked. All my drawings sucked that day. So I'm not going to go do Plains. I'm going to go do this video. So I don't have time to go anywhere else right now.
Right.
I was going to go down to Orange and do it, and I haven't been able to get down there to do it. And I realized it's like, I can do it right here, 5 minutes from here. I don't need to go to Orange. And that's important to me, that what we're going to start talking about this week. Does anybody have any specific questions?
I had a question.
Yeah.
How do you suggest to differentiate between the design of the plane and like shadows when using marker? Like if there's a camo pattern on it?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. You're probably going to have to go, whatever the value of the camo pattern is, you're just going to have to go a little darker on the camo pattern itself or right over it. Actually, you're probably going to have to put down whatever the value is of the shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably going to be a little lighter value. But then when you go onto those dark shapes in the camo pattern, take another value that's a little darker and just darken the pattern within the shadow. Does that make sense?
Okay, I did that on one of mine. Can you let me know if it looks okay?
That's a good question, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, Kayla, which ones?
I think the top one on that page. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, okay, so the light was here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this at March?
Yeah, it is. I went there for the first time.
It's cool, right?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really fun.
I love that place, man.
I was there a really long time.
That's an all-day thing, man. You know?
I had fun.
Now the
just
next
walking
one,
around too.
if you want to drive even further, the next one that's really cool is the Patton Memorial, and it's just out in the middle of the desert. But they got tanks and stuff. It's just those like weird military museums are just trippy. You know what I mean?
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
And then there's also one in El Monte. It's called the American Military Museum, and they're only open like maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but they have tanks and all that stuff too. And it's in El Monte, so it's not so far.
Okay.
But March is my favorite because it's like, you see how it's not over fussy? Like they just let you do whatever you want in there.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Kayla, were you there on Thursday?
Yeah, I noticed you there.
That was you. Okay. I was like, I wonder if she's in Sheehan's class.
Why did you guys ask?
don't
I
know.
waved to you, but you looked really focused.
Did
So I
you?
didn't want to
Oh, I'm
bother
sorry.
you. It's okay.
Eric sent me a text about that. He's like, ugh, Kayla's waving to me. Not waving back. I go, I don't think
Yeah.
she-
Okay. Well, next time I'll say hi.
That's cool you guys got out there.
I had a blast. It was so cool. It was my first time too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places. And another thing is that my teacher, I had a class sort of like this at Art Center, and I remember the memory I have of going there with him, and I was like, this place is cool. I don't know how I didn't know about it. And I totally sucked. The first day I went there, man, I sucked. And you know, if you guys, you should go to any of these places when they have an air show, especially March. The air shows are super cool.
Yeah, going there, I was like, do I want to do industrial design?
When we get back on campus, if you guys are thinking about that, really seriously thinking about that, then talk to me when we get back on, or maybe even before we get on campus if you're vaccinated, actually. I'll take you guys over to Art Center as soon as they're open, and I'll show you what that's about. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Actually, you know, it's nice to get a variety of people and go maybe illustration, industrial design, yeah, they have environmental design. It's things that you're not going to see everywhere. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Okay, so this is the one you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So all I would have done is just got a darker value marker. Like I have I think a 3, a 6, and an 8, I think.
Okay.
That's what I have right now. And just wherever on this, now another thing here, let's grab this value. Like wherever it was, and it could have been probably lower, I would guess. Might have tried to get a little bit of a core in here somewhere, right?
Hmm.
And then I would just take a little darker value from this, maybe. And just within this shadow, I'd work that darker shadow.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
And what I probably would have done is it rolled over here and I had a lighter value here. Let's say my shadow is here. You know, I'd probably roll over the whole thing with that value and then come back into it just in the dark parts of the camel pattern and go darker.
Okay.
Because yeah, I've had the same thing when I've been over there when I'm doing it and thought about that. You know, more like that. So it's turning a little more.
Yeah.
Is it hot down there?
When I went, it wasn't really hot. It was kind of cloudy.
Oh, you went on a good day. Sometimes it's, you know, it's the desert, you know.
Hmm.
But what I like about it, you saw those gigantic planes they had there, right?
Oh yeah, it was fun just standing by it.
Mm-hmm. Those things are huge, man. But what I like about it is no matter what the weather's like, there's always a wing you can sit under and you're always in the shade.
Hmm.
It's also this car stuff and vehicle stuff. It's really good to start really, you know, getting a handle on your ellipses. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Like this one's turning towards me. You see that?
Mm.
This one feels pretty good. But this one, see how it's kind of starting to turn towards the viewer?
Yeah.
So when you open up that ellipse, that it's okay. So if I'm looking at it from a, from a, side view or whatever, I'm going to do that. But as soon as you start opening it this way, you're starting to tell me that I'm more and more in front of it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So always try and really practice those things, man. Just like I showed you on a separate piece of paper and all that kind of stuff, and really get that down. Okay. Your ellipses are really important. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
It's my new coffee solution. I'm very proud of it.
What's in it?
Okay, good. And you're going Prisma first and then whatever paint marker or whatever for specular, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Did you see those core shadows you get on the leading edge of the wing?
Uh-huh.
That's really important. Okay. You want to start seeing that in general. It's something that people miss all the time.
Okay.
You get it on fabric a lot, like these little folds. If you look at them in a certain kind of light, they'll get a little tiny bit of a core on them, and it really turns stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of stuff right here, like the way the rotor goes from, whatever the motor's turning it, and the way it just, it turns into the blades. That kind of stuff is really interesting to me. Like and it's also like you draw that stuff, you start getting a sort of subconscious thinking about believability when you're designing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Those are good. Well, that's a tricky one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This one it's doing the same thing where it's feeling like the tail is starting to bend towards me a little bit. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So make sure that what that is that you got to make sure that fin is oriented in a way where it looks like it's continuing this way and not starting to come this way, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
That's real common. This is a tricky one right here. And if you noticed on a lot of these planes, the canopies, where the glass, whatever it is, it's all smoke, like it's all it's going opaque from the sun. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not glass, it's some kind of plastic. I don't know what it is.
Also, what were some of the other pens that you recommended? Because I'm using the Pilot G2 pen, and when I went over it with the Tombow, it started smudging a little bit.
Yeah, actually, that's something I might talk about for a minute here today. Yeah, it's a water soluble pen. So if you want that same kind of rollerball thing, because I like that. I like it because when you take a roller, I mean, I guess you do with a fine tip or a fiber tip pen too, but they're just super clean and inky and dense. Like if you put a line real fast, it doesn't skitter or anything. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But so if you want one that's waterproof, Uniball makes one. I'll go get my bag in a minute. I have one in there. But Uniball makes one. It's very similar to the G2, but it's waterproof.
Okay, I'll have to get that one.
All those fiber tip pens, like the Micron, the Staedtlers, the Prismacolor fiber fine, those are more fiber tip. Those are great. One thing I think it's good to do, and the reason I like an inky pen is like the G2 and those kind of pens will put down, if I throw down a fast line, it'll throw down a pretty thin line. But then if I want to build it up, it's very easy for me to keep hitting that line and build it up, which is a good thing to learn while you're doing this. But also, take a brush pen, so a brush pen gives you a lot of flexibility because you can go from a very fine thing to a really fat line. And I'll use that fat line on the under part of the plane and things like that, or where I want to separate it. You know what I mean? What other kind of pins? God, I got so many of them. I should get my bag. Let me get my bag. Yeah?
Okay.
Because it's in the car. Hang on. And I'll see what I have. Where is my thing? I think I mentioned this one. I don't know, though. It's a Signo, Uniball Signo. And these are like fine line paint markers. They're just like a ballpoint pen or like a roller ball, but they're white. Yeah?
Oh yeah, I have that one.
Okay. Brush pens. This one's sepia. So I keep a set of sepia fiber tip pins in my car because a lot of times I just want to draw with a sepia. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I keep a tube of white gouache in here. Prismas. I always keep a pencil extender in here, right? That way I can get them all the way down the nub. And if I'm using, I think I've talked about this. I like these. And when they start getting low, I bust the eraser off of it so I can stick it in the pencil extender. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also keep an orange or a red color erase in here. Those are for one of two things. When I do drawings and I'm going to put watercolor on them, I usually use a red or an orange pencil, or maybe a sepia. The reason being is it disappears under the washes in a more natural way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then here, I've been using these a lot. The old Pilot Flare, or not Pilot, Papermate flare pins. You remember these? These are great. Right? And I like them. I think I talked about this. I can use them almost like a pencil. I can draw with them sideways and stuff because they got a real broad tip. And they throw down pretty fat lines. I still got to put that picture up. I forgot to do that of all this crap. More flare pins. Oh, this one's cool. This is a Pentel Sign Artist brush. Now, usually, okay, so I like the Pentel Sign Painter brushes or whatever they're called. But this is a different one I found. I don't know if you can see that. Look how sharp that brush is. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a super fine brush pen. I forgot where I found it at. But it's really cool. I think these I got at Daiso just to play around with. They're brown brush pens. Yeah, they're Daiso because you can tell by the cheesy writing on it. These are made by I think it's Pentel. Yeah, it's Pentel, and they're just brush pens. They're loaded with ink, but you can get them in gray. I think this one's gray. Yeah, this one's gray. You can get them in black. These are cool, especially the gray ones. I like the gray a lot. This is that Tombow. I think it's a Tombow. Tombow. This again has a broad side on it. I talked about this. Where is it? I talked about this before. I also can draw with this almost like a pencil because it's a brush pen, but it's a little stiffer. So it's not quite a brush pen. It's not quite a fiber tip pen. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a regular Pentel sign pen. I like these. I don't know why it's called a sign pen, by the way. Tombow paint marker, extra fine. This one is. You got to shake them. And then I get random pens. This one is a Papermate Ink Joy. These are pretty cool, by the way. I don't know if these are waterproof or water soluble. Actually, I'm going to check that in a minute. If those are waterproof, that would solve your G5 problem. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This is a sepia brush pen, same brand as that other one that was gray I said I liked. I have a gray one, I have a black one, and I have a sepia one. So this I'll use when I use sepia pens to put in value. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Tone paper usually. You can see I've got 10,000 pins in here. Oh, good. I just spilt ink all over my computer. So one of those pins is leaking. Big fat Sharpies. this is an interesting pen. This is they have different names. That's what's weird about it. Hang on. This one's called Pentel Stylo. It has a really flexible nib. It's also water soluble, I think. But it's a really interesting pen. Sometimes they're called Pula Man. I don't know why. Okay. Does that make sense? And I like these. Oh shit, where'd it go? I got a Pentel brush pen in here. Or not Pentel, Prismacolor. And I also do have a Pentel brush pen. The Pentel brush pen I use kind of in a different way. I like to do like little quick caricatures and things like that in a little tone paper book I have, and then I'll go over those and really ink them real clean with a nice Pentel brush pen. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Is it the pocket brush pen?
I think so. They're about $20. I usually have one. Oh, it's probably in my other bag because I made a separate bag just for that stuff. That's a real nice brush pen. It's really fussy, and the reason I like it is because I don't tend to draw fussy. So if I switch over to that tool, then I have to really lay that ink down the right way. Otherwise, I wreck the whole drawing, and it just forces my brain to think a different way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know where it went. I just had it. Oh, here it is. These are handy because I like the fine fiber tipped Sharpies. This one, there's two. Okay. Now this one, what's cool about this one is I have that fine line pen just to throw down regular drawings, and then I can flip it over and I got a regular fat marker. So I can do everything with this marker. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When you buy a Sharpie ultra fine, they're called, not the double tipped ones, just the ultra fine. I don't know if this is weird why they do that. I don't know why they do this. One of them is a fiber tip pin like this, which is what I like. And then the other one's got a plastic tip, which I don't like. Okay. If you look on the cap, they're both squared off, but I think it's the one that's plastic is beveled. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't like the one that's beveled. I think it's the one that's beveled. It's not ultra, or it's not the fiber tip. It's got that weird plastic tip. I just don't like that. Okay. Now, why they have two pins that are called the same thing that have two different tips that don't really call it out, I have no idea. Right. And those are totally waterproof. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sharpie even makes an industrial one to draw on weird stuff. When you got to mark something on a job site or something like that. I think that's all I have in here right now. Let's see. These are kind of fun. This isn't a pin, but this is one of those graphite sticks. You ever use these?
Oh yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, they're kind of cool. I have to be in the mood for it. And then another thing that I keep in here that I really like to play with is this is a Mitsubishi 10B, right? So this thing makes a crazy dark mark and it's super buttery. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is a bitchin' pencil. It's almost like drawing with a charcoal pencil without the hassle of a charcoal pencil. And then lately, by the way, with pencils, I like the Prismacolor pumpkin orange. These are cool. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I got a couple. Maybe I'll play around with this right now. Let's see. Let's try this one. Let me see if my fountain pen, let me put this away. Hang on. That's the pins I have right now. Yeah. And my markers, by the way. But you're going to find out this pin thing becomes a weird obsession if you're like me. Where you just, every time you see a pin, you start, ooh, and you buy it. That's why I go to Daiso sometimes to fill that fix.
Yeah, I got a calligraphy pen from there.
You what?
Calligraphy pen from Daiso.
Yeah, was it cool?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's so much fun, like once you get into this pin stuff to me, because then you start going, yeah, you buy like a weird pin like that and you go, holy shit, this thing's cool. And you know, it does something cool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I keep in here. This is a fountain pen. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I might talk about this right now today. Maybe I'll go over this because I can't go over the stylization thing. And I want to go over the I gotta get my arm out of the car for in here. And I think, let me see if this pin's got ink in it. Oh, it does. By the way, I keep sepia ink in this. Right, I want to talk about this a little bit today. And this one a little bit in relation to, I didn't see my uniball in there. I know I have a uniball in there somewhere. It's another Signo. I'll find the uniball and I'll link it on the canvas. Also, you know, whenever I buy a pin, if I don't know, usually if they're waterproof, they'll tell you, but sometimes they don't. So whenever I buy a pin, I always just put down a line and come back 10 minutes later and get a brush marker or a brush pin or something and wet it down and see if it smudges. That way I know if it's waterproof or not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get a let me pull my arm out of my car so I can put another camera over here. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. Number one, you got to make sure that the paper can even do this because sometimes the paper will just suck it in. By the way, I always keep a water brush in my bag for just such an emergency. So let's see. Here's a G2. I'll let it sit there for a second. Here's my water. Now, water fountain pen ink is water soluble, okay? It's not waterproof. There's one brand called Noodlers that's supposedly waterproof. I've never tried it. There's also a new brand of pen that keeps it wet called an Indigraph, I-N-D-I graph. Okay. So most of the people look at this as a negative. I don't. So here's my, well, let's do this one first. Okay, you can see that this is watercolor paper, so it's going to do it pretty good. You see that?
Yeah.
And then if you notice, I could pick this up and pull it over here, and I still going to get a little bit of value in it. And I start to get where I can sort of gauge what it's going to do. The whatever you call it, the brush or the fountain pen really gets obliterated. So this is a melted line idea, okay? So I guess I will just make this up properly. If I'm doing a face, my hand's a little screwed up. I don't know what's going on with it. By the way, drawing with the fountain pen is really fun. So let's say I'm drawing a face. And I'm just going to pull this in here. And I might just sort of map out my eye sockets. You can see that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, you'll have a better view of it in that when I put the video up. You know, I'm going to put some tone in here in his eyes. Now, I could just do that basically, and I could just do my line work and start to define all this. He's got a really small chin. And then let's just put his hair in here, so I don't need to draw all of them. I'm going to give him a little more hair than he actually has. And you notice I'm being pretty reckless with this now, like with that. I'm going to put this value in his ear, back of his hair. And let's just say that's, I liked it, which I don't. Okay. Now what I could do is I could come in here and I can start to get nice washy shadow values. The whole side of his face is in shadow, so I'm going to throw that in here. See, I still have value on it.
Yeah.
And I can start to kind of paint it a little bit. Now what I tend to do with this I'm going to put a little of that leftover value on his nose. Don't want too much. Now let's give it a second to dry. So what I usually do, let me dry it. Now, obviously if you're outside or something, it would dry super fast. And what I do is I set up the eye sockets and the shadows and everything. If you notice, I didn't draw his eye in there, right?
Right.
So now I'm going to come back in. And in that socket, I can start to build his eye. And I can reinforce some of this line work. I don't really want to overdo it because I want to keep that. And then I might put another value. I usually darken up the value back here on the back of the hair. And I can start to build them out a little back and forth between the wash and the line, yeah?
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with this. It just really depends on what kind of paper you're on. Again, I can be pretty loose with my line. Like I like to set this up if I have the, shadow values in there. It's fun to set up the face just with the shadow values at first because it really gives it a lot of structure. See, on watercolor paper, man, this really goes dark. Now, another thing I could do is I can take some of this off on a paper towel or something. Yeah, so now I got a light wash, and I might put a little of that on his nose again. Some down here, get that ear in there. And this is the Pilot G2, yeah? And we give him a 5 o'clock shadow. And maybe, let's say it's on this side of the face. You see that?
Yes.
You can see how useful that can be, correct?
Yeah.
What I like about this, now, we're starting to talk about a lot of these techniques now. I love this part of the class because I love all these techniques. So, markers, but and markers are great, but kind of every time to me in my brain, once you go to marker, my brain starts to go to Viscom. It starts to go to sort of design drawing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I like this because it's sort of accomplishing the same goal. It just has a little more of an artistic feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this, the fountain pen thing, or any of these water-soluble inks. So this is a melted line drawing thing, right? You can see how when you get that nice value in here, especially with a fountain pen, man. I don't know why I just love fountain pens. That's why I love sepia. You could do this in your figure drawing class. You could do it when we have the costume figure night. That's a good place for this, okay? Because you can throw down value and a render on it really quick and really sort of painterly. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, another way to do this. Let's do this. Same thing, eye sockets. And you can see how minimal I can keep the face as I'm building it, yeah?
Yeah.
Another thing I like. Got a little wash left. Sometimes I'll go in here and I'll pick it out of a darker wash and grab a little bit and it'll be lighter. So we're getting a little bit of value on the side of his face.
Yeah.
Now, let's go. I'm going to do this. Oh, let's get my hat. And I'm going to put that value, because he's wearing a hat, like I always do. Bring his hair down in here, maybe a little back here. Put in a collar. Doesn't look like a very bright guy. Okay. Yeah, it looks like he's got a mustache. I'll make him a mustache. I'm going to melt this all out. See? Yeah, I put a little wash here so I don't have to rely on that line because there's a light value there, dark wash, yeah? This is a Derwent watercolor pencil. Okay? Can you guys see that? Where is it? Right there.
Yes.
Okay? A lot of manufacturers make these. Now, one thing, and I think I mentioned this before, maybe it's another class. I used to use these a lot. I'd had like 4 colors and I could do portraits on the plane when I had to fly for work. Yeah?
Yeah.
I have some somewhere. I don't know where. And they dry fast. Okay, so another thing I'm going to do here. And give him a little plaid pattern on here. always say when you're doing a plaid pattern. Hang on. What I do to sell it is where they overlap, I'll go a little darker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't have to really oversell it. I just do that. Maybe I'll put a light line in there, here and there in between. Put a couple of buttons. Darken this value. That value. And then I just kind of come in and work what I need to work. And I might just leave it really washy. I like it like that, actually. I'll put some glasses on him. I don't like his eyes. Make sense?
Yeah.
So these are three different, this is just basically the same idea, but melted line, right? Any kind of water soluble pen. Let's try this one. This is the Inkjoy. This feels a lot like the Pilot G2. I love the G2. Who was saying that? Kayla? You were using a G2?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like it?
I did. It's just when I went over it with my crew, then I noticed it would bleed a little.
Yeah, once in a while it'll bleed a little. But if you go, let's try this one. Yeah, you got to give enough time to dry, really. I think it's dry. Yeah, it melts. So what I'm trying to get to is like whenever I have a pencil or pen or whatever, and at first I go, it's a melted line, use any material to your advantage. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice also to mix up the line, wash, like all that kind of stuff. And I could come in here, let's see. Maybe put a little highlight on that, right? Or I could come in here. Give his glasses a little bit of transparent. This is a little not transparent, but it's not too bad. And start to give his glasses a little bit of a blue, glassy kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I could use this as a starting point, and I could now start adding some color to this. Because the thing is, like, if I go here, it's going to lift. But the stuff that I've already washed is going to sit down pretty easily. So you can see how fast I can do watercolor portraits and things like that with this technique, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit of a dark value. I don't keep black in my palette. Let's go here. And now maybe I'll put in some of those dark values in there. I'd probably go here. By the way, when you're using this thing, get a towel, you can squeeze it a little bit and you just take the whatever's on it off. I'm gonna go here and grab some of this orangey color and orange up his ear, because I always do that. Maybe I'll throw a little in here. This has got a little bit of gouache in it, that's why it's not totally transparent. But see, we can start to get a little quick, limited color portrait, right? Another thing I do is I like to warm up the nose a little. There, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's not too bad. So fountain pen, and fountain pen, you try this with your figure drawing, it's really cool. And then go in there and melt some of the line and get some of the shadow values. This is the Inkjoy one. This is a nice pen. It's kind of like the P2. G2, Tombow. Watercolor pencil. Yeah? I'd actually like you guys to start playing around with that this week. Because kind of what we're doing here, hang on, let me switch now. What we're doing here a lot is that these and I love these kind of techniques. Why do I love them? Because like I just said, I'm on the plane or something, I can do a really quick portraits. You know, I have all sorts of little techniques that I can use, like, oh, I can draw the whole airport. I'll use this and I'll melt some of the line and get the whole airport, you know, very quickly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes the whole world your oyster, man. I'm telling you. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. Makes everywhere fun. Hang on a second. So here's a nice little something you could do something similar to that. Oh, I'm not sharing it. Hang on. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Megan, this is up your alley.
Yeah, that is.
Let me see if I can find. Here's another. Here's a cool one. So I think you did this mostly in watercolor, but then this reddish rust thing is a fountain pen that he went and drew lines over it, and then he melted the fountain pen to get the rust color. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I want you guys to understand is, like, now we're into mix and match, you know, different techniques. You know, I always say this too, like there's a lot of people that know watercolor or like the marker stuff or whatever. I don't know. And then they go and draw something that I go, that just doesn't feel like that's the right media for that subject matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it just starts to feel like, okay, that just feels like an industrial design sketch. And you're telling me it was like an interesting memory or moment. And it just feels like an industrial design sketch that it doesn't have that flavor. You know what I mean? So I'm always thinking about what I'm drawing, why I'm drawing it. If I'm going to go back into the toy industry, I'm going to go right back to that Viscom stuff that we're doing now, because it's cleared and communicates. Okay. Let me find some more of these. I love this kind of stuff. I love doing this kind of stuff when you go places. So this is at a recital or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's probably, see, he's talking about what we talked about in here. I watched him without drawing for the first few minutes to look for characteristic poses. We've talked about that, right? Sort of getting where he lands all the time. That way it helps you figure out what pose to hit, because he's going to hit that pose over and over again, right?
Right.
Right.
And look at it up close. It's got all this gouache on it. Yeah, this is watercolor pencils. And then he hit the and a fountain pen and water brush, just like we just talked about. So he's adding different materials into that idea. Hang on. This is actually not something we're doing, but it's interesting. Because again, he does a lot of these, you know, when he goes and sees musicians or whatever. So here's his block-in process here. You see how simple that is? He's just knocking in the shadow values. He's basically doing the same thing I was just doing with the pen, with the watercolor, or with the fountain pen, yeah?
Yeah.
And then he busts it. Look, he busts the head into light and dark, about a mid, that's pretty light actually. And then you're dark. And then starts to, you know, model the face, and he gets it to here. That make sense?
Yes.
I do this kind of stuff all the time. It's really valuable, man. Ink and wash, I think. Another musician. I'm trying to find some watercolor pencil ones. A nice one. Blah, blah, blah. I think I'll link some from there. So any of these kind of things you have that'll melt the line, or go get a watercolor pencil if you want. You know, they're not expensive. Yeah?
Yeah.
but I love fountain pen. And again, the Kohinoor has that art pen. They call it an art pen. It's a fountain pen. It's a really cool fountain pen. I think it used to be about $16. It's probably like 20 now or whatever. And if you're going to get any kind of fountain pen, get a piston converter so you can put whatever kind of ink you want in it. I don't like relying on somebody else's cartridges. Then I got to, if I'm out of ink, I'm out of ink. That's it. If I have a piston converter, as long as I have a bottle of ink, sepia ink, that I've had for like at least half a decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also like to be able to use the colors I want. Like if you go to Vroman's in Pasadena, they have a really good selection of ink and fountain pens, everywhere from the really expensive ones to the cheaper ones. There used to be a really great store in Monrovia called the Fountain Pen Shop, which I think the guy died. Man, that was a cool store. But it was like walking into the 40s. And he had used fountain pens. He fixed fountain pens. So if you found an old one, like I have a friend who, she found her dad's, just a bunch of her dad's old stuff. And he had like 15 fountain pens in there from like the 40s or whatever. She could have took them over there and he'd repair them, get them all working again. Some of them are probably valuable because some of them are really expensive. Some fountain pens are really expensive. You don't need an expensive one though. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Questions on this?
May I use a dip pen?
Okay, so if you use a dip pen, if you use an India ink is waterproof.
Okay.
Now, sure, you could use it. It's not going to melt though. Now you could use a, if you want to use a dip pen, you could get fountain pen ink and try that because that's water soluble. If you want to do the line and wash thing, it's also going to matter what kind of paper you use. Like I did this on the watercolor paper mostly just because I had watercolor paper out from a demo yesterday. But man, it really reacts nice on here. If you have like a really cheap kind of paper, that type of paper tends to be really porous, and what it does is it just sucks the ink right into the paper, and it's not gonna spread as much. It'll spread some, but not as much as it just did here, because this paper has sizing on it, which is designed to control the absorbency of the material on the surface, the wetness of the surface, and how much of it sinks into the paper and how much of it floats. Correct?
Yes, correct.
So that's sizing on it. Okay. But you'll find different papers that just do a really good job. It might be a really cheap paper and it's like, wow, it smears all over this thing. And that's great. Same thing when you're using, like if you want to put some washes down, like those Piccadilly sketchbooks, if I put a wash down on those Piccadilly sketchbook, it just sucks the watercolor right into the paper. I can't manipulate it hardly at all. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, when I look at that, because I was talking to somebody about it and they go, you can't use it. And I go, why? It makes a different kind of mark. So I just play with what it does now. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
And sometimes I stumble onto things that are like I go, I might, okay, like I think I talked about this. I gessoed out this page. Yeah, I know I talked about this page, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then these guys showed up and I go, I'm just going to, for the hell of it. When thinking about it, I go, I want to put some color on them. And it makes like a really interesting mark on the gesso. You see that?
Yes.
And I like it. And then I also figured out that like, oh, it won't stick to the watercolor. It won't stick to the gesso because it's plastic. So then I could go with my brush or my water brush and I can lift things out and then I can put color down again. And then I went, I wonder if I just seal this. I wonder if I can seal this with fixative. And I could. Then I go, oh, now I can put a layer of matte medium on it and I can start to paint acrylics over it or oil or whatever.
Okay.
And then I developed like a technique for doing that kind of thing. All right. Which is what like this is. It's kind of, it's a variation of this.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. This one. Right?
Yes.
That's a variation of that technique. This one is a variation of that technique, right?
Okay. Yes.
So that's why this is valuable, by the way, because I have a blast playing in here and I come up with all kinds of stuff and, you know, get different ideas. Okay. Because for some reason, when I'm in my sketchbook, it's like anything goes. You know, I might get to the end of that portrait and then go, I want to throw some oil on here and paint some oil over it. And it helps me to stumble on ideas. It helps me to keep my chops up. It helps me to find new techniques. You know, and then those techniques begat other techniques. And some of them are like what I'm talking about in here. Like, I don't think anybody showed me melted line. It's not like I invented it, but I just stumbled on it. You know what I mean? And I stumble on things when something does something that's quote unquote bad. And I go, yeah, but yeah, it doesn't make traditional watercolor marks, but those are cool looking marks. And that's the only way I can get those marks. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So speaking of Megan, how'd you do this week?
I think I did pretty well. I didn't necessarily stick to the assignment exactly.
Why is that? Well, we kind of said anything goes. We just want to get some hard surface stuff in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went to a friend's house and she has horses and she offered to tie up a horse for me so I could sketch it. So
We talked about this. You said you were going to do something like that, didn't you?
yes, I did.
Oh, and
And
yeah,
also-
the dinosaurs. Oh, the dinosaurs are
Yeah.
pretty good. Okay, so there's two things I'm trying to accomplish this week, which I am going to accomplish. One is the dinosaur demo, and the other one is the designing from life demo. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
That way we can hopefully have that conversation on Saturday.
Okay.
And watch these proportions here. These are pretty good though.
Yeah, they kind of got a little bit wonky.
Yeah, well, they're horses, man. Horses are tricky, man. I like this, how you got that little slant to the legs.
Thank you.
It means you're looking. They're cool to draw though, huh?
Yeah, they're really difficult because they just keep moving. But
Yeah.
besides that, they're really fun to draw.
This is great. The only thing I'd say is he's turning his head, right?
Yes.
A little bit. I think you got to sell me that because his chest is showing me he's sort of turning towards me,
Mm-hmm.
but it sort of feels like this is going the other way a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
It's really, we just talked about this with I think it was Kayla's, you know, where it felt like the plane was bending towards us, right? It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to think about, I think, when you start getting into that, I don't know where I think I put my pen, my stylus in the bag. Shit. If that head is coming towards me, you have to think about, and I'm just going to draw a little bit different, but you have to think about there's a neck that connects somewhere, you know, and then how is this interior area? It sort of gets that
okay.
ellipse thing. And if you start to think about how that form flows around, it'll help you to sort of turn it correctly. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I'd break up the bottom here a little more with the leaves or the grass or whatever.
Okay.
Where was this at? The dinosaurs.
There's a dinosaur museum. It's in Fruita, Colorado.
Oh, it's just dinosaurs?
Yeah, basically. But they have a lot of different skeletons and a couple of models and stuff. It's pretty small, but they have a good amount of.
They don't need to be big. My favorite place for that is, which we usually go to, is a Natural History Museum in LA.
Okay.
Really historic buildings, got a really cool feel to it.
Ooh, okay.
And by the way, I don't know if they're doing it right now. Normally they do First Fridays. Super fun. They light up all the Hall of Mammals. And this building's bitching, man. It's old. And then they put like little lounge areas. They got a bar. And then when I went, I did a story on it for NPR. They had a band at either end of the hallways because they're really long.
Okay.
And then you could get a cocktail and then go upstairs, and then there was like a paleontologist doing a lecture on something to do with dinosaurs. You could walk through the museum with a cocktail. It was awesome.
Okay.
Not that I'm encouraging everybody to drink. Okay, so do you understand why I like the dinosaurs? Is an organic place to talk about spatial relationships. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
And also breaking down a very complex form. And then the planes are a mechanical version of spatial relationship. So I like to use these two things, an organic version of it and a mechanical version of it. Yeah?
Yes, got it.
If you can get your eyes really trained, and now I think we're understanding that this is all about seeing. You get that, right?
Yes, I understand that.
You start to get like, I don't necessarily always teach it this way because I feel like it's a more experienced thing. But a lot of times I'll start with an eye and I'll just start building out the whole head or whatever. And it's not necessarily a good way to learn in the beginning because your spatial relationships will probably be all off.
Yeah.
But when you can start to see them, it's almost like you're just plugging little pieces of the puzzle in there and they all start to balance, you know, and then you drop down and you knock the
Okay.
hand. You know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
And you're probably I'm assuming a lot of you are starting to feel that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Where you're going, oh, okay, yeah. It's starting to, things are starting to line up a little bit. Are you still in Colorado?
Yes.
How long are you going to be there?
Till Sunday.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's been a really nice trip.
I'm going to take a little mini road trip straight down the 138 out into the Antelope Valley down to Little Rock.
Okay, cool.
I'm not going to do it today because I don't feel good. Actually, I probably
Yeah,
won't do it tomorrow.
road trips, you just need to feel good in order to go on one.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just woke up feeling really crappy. And my girlfriend got super sick last night, so I don't know what's going on. If we ate something weird,
Oh, that sucks.
I don't remember. I don't think we did though. I don't know. I mean, she got so sick I had to like basically help her go to bed. It's kind
Okay.
of scary, actually.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, whatever. It'll pass. So I'm going to try and accomplish both these goals this week because I do want to have this conversation. I don't want to assign that for you guys this week because we haven't really gone over it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I am going to ask you to, after I get the video up, I'm going to try and get that video up by tomorrow, the one on designing from life. And once you take a look at that and then you can start playing with your environments and stylizing. Yeah, because we've talked about stylizing people, right?
Yes.
So I want to talk about environments and specifically, and there's two reasons why I like doing this, or a couple of reasons why I like doing this designing from life thing. One of them, it's not just like you're always going to go, like if I can go somewhere, if I was doing some kind of research or something, and I can go somewhere and draw from life, I'm going to. I just like that. Part of it, and I probably said this, but part of it is like if you're like the planes, you learn so much stuff. You guys who went to March Field, I hope you went up, close to those planes and you saw all the surface detail you never really noticed, right? Eric?
Yeah, they were really intricate.
Those are the things, and what's really interesting, if you go back and look at like the old Star Wars concept drawings, let me see if I can find one. But part of the reason that show had or movie had such a layer of believability on it is because a lot of people working on it were industrial designers. So they just design things like they would design it for the real world, and then they come out looking believable. There's a really early one that really shows this kind of idea. But even like this, these cut lines, these little vent things, these little cut lines on the surface, these little vents and little, like if you notice if you went to March Field, A, it's all riveted. And B, there's like these little, like you turn it and it opens a little door, or it's a little access panel, or or it has a little signage on it that says caution, stay clear of engines, just all that stuff that's on the surface. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
And you look at this and you go, okay. And then Eric.
Yes.
Did you see the engines they had out there that are just sitting out there? So look. because the reason I'm talking about this is about research, but these things right here are almost verbatim those motors. Can you see that?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because when I was drawing those like propellers and then the those big motors, I guess, I was having trouble kind of like with the perspective and lining them up in my drawings. And so, yeah, that's something that I kind of wanted to look at.
Like these
But
kind
yeah,
of
this is
motors?
exactly it.
Well, you want to look at that, I think, if I'm going to do that, and I'm not warmed up, so my ellipses will be off. So give me a break. Hang on. You know, one thing you want to do is you want to turn your page. And I would think if I was drawing one of those motors, let's say that if I turn my page, oops, I just did. I'm going to think of it literally like straight up a cylinder. And yes, I know I'm doing horrible cylinders. I'm going to turn my page. I'm going to get these cylinders lined up, right?
Yeah.
As long as I get these two things lined up, which I'm not yet here, and then I can go, okay, this is here. This comes out here. This does this. This comes around. This dips in. And I'm building the whole thing around that cylinder. And then things are going to line up. And I know if this one's this open, you know, it's going to get more open back here, depending on how it's positioned. Yeah? Let's see how I can knock this out pretty quickly if I just think of it sort of as a cylinder.
Right.
Always get your cylinders right. Okay, if your cylinders are off, the whole drawing's screwed, right?
Right.
There's something, I got a pinched nerve in this arm like about a year ago, and it screwed up this, like this. My hand wasn't working right. Okay. It was actually hard for me to even open a door. Really scary, actually. Of course, it has happened in my right hand, but ever since then, it'll kind of act up. It doesn't hurt like it did, but I don't feel a little wobbly on my control right now. It'll go away, but it's kind of annoying. But anyway, does this make sense? And does that sort of answer that?
Yeah, I think I was kind of coming at it because like these aircrafts are just so huge.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to like, I didn't have any sort of like little like bench, which I'm gonna invest in one of those like portable ones. Like
I just sit
stool.
on the ground.
Yeah, no, that's what I did. I sat on the ground, but then this massive vehicle's just like in front of me, and I'm like, okay, where do you even start? Like,
that's what I was talking about. Why I like March Field is I can actually get some distance from them. Yeah. And I think that I don't think I did that the first time I went there, and I think that's part of the reason I sucked at that day. It felt overwhelming. You know, things like looming right at you, like, where do I start at? You feel like you're pushed into a corner or something. So I think, you know, getting a little distance from them, you know, and then later on, if you want to do that big dramatic close view where it's very foreshortened, that's right. Cool. But when you're learning it, I tend to like to be further away from them anyway. I just like to get clean views of them.
Yeah.
And that's why I like March Field is I can really get away from them. You know, when you go to Plains of Fame, a lot of their stuff is inside and they're very cramped, and you don't really get that many choices over your point of view. Okay. And what I was saying about the research thing, I'm hoping that not only like if you're going down there and you're going, okay, I'm going to work on this thing and it's going to have vehicles in it and they're militaristic, even if they're futuristic, I'm going to start there. And the thing that's great about that is instead of looking, you know, I'm going to pull photo reference too, but by going there and standing there, I hope you're seeing that like that kind of research is nothing like what you get in a photograph.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you can walk around this thing, you get a sense of scale. You walk around it and you go, holy shit, man, from a back view, this thing's badass. You know what I mean? And then you might go, I'm going to make that the front view on my vehicle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Believability. You know, I see people all the time, they draw a helicopter and it's like, and it's like, no. There's this crazy engineered way that has to work. You know,
right.
And I don't have to like memorize it, but it'll start to infect your thinking when you're throwing something down. your brain's throwing it down in a sort of believable way based on all the stuff you've seen. It's not exactly right or anything,
Right.
but it looks believable. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like the only
mhm.
person that's going to look at that and not know that is an aerospace engineer, you know?
Right.
Look at it
Right.
and go, hey, that doesn't work. And it's like, it doesn't have to work, dude. It just has to look like it works.
Right.
Like
Right.
the example I always use of this is the only one I ever saw was the first Transformers movie because I saw it on a plane. Horrible movie, by the way. I thought the design of those things, I might have talked about this before. I thought the design of those things were so over designed, it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Agreed.
it was hard to make out what I was even looking at. There were so many pieces to it. It was a really odd design decision to me.
Mhm.
And I noticed in that movie, to me, as I remember it, was a long time ago, it seemed to me like they tricked almost every shot in that movie. Because every shot with the robots was like real fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's because probably because it's like none of that stuff really works. So you can't really show it working in a smooth, you know, your cheap,
Right.
okay.
Mhm,
When I was
mhm.
doing the product for Wall-E, I was talking to the director, Andrew Stanton, right, and his team, and we were talking about it, and I go, you guys cheated those proportions, right? And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, when it goes into, you know, when he closes up or whatever, he goes, that stuff doesn't fit in there.
Mhm, mhm.
You know what I mean? And then he goes, if you notice when he does that, you know, he was talking about a particular scene. He goes, notice when he does that, it's real fast, so we can trick it. You know what I mean?
Huh.
Now in that case, it's fine, you know. But I always said with Transformers, if you gave me one or two shots where they didn't move so fast, it would have sold the believability a little harder, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Just give me an insert shot of his hand coming down and picking something up, just something simple.
Right. Right.
Whereas like stop with the, you know, but he's known for that. Michael Bay is known for that crazy fast cutting stuff anyway.
Mhm, mhm.
He's a trippy dude, by the way.
Yeah.
I've met him like twice. He's super cocky, man. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's made multiple billion-dollar movies.
Yeah.
I mean, not cocky in a snotty way. You could just tell he was super confident.
Like it's like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've made the money to prove it. So like, what do you have to say about it?
Well, he had interesting stories because I went to a lecture he did at Art Center when I was at Art Center. It was right when he was coming up, and he'd just become the big hot thing because The Rock came out.
Mhm.
And he had a lot of interesting stories about how Hollywood, he goes, when you first start doing this, they totally sabotage you. You know, it's super weird because you're like, you're putting all this money in this movie. You're giving it to this new director. Actually, he did Bad Boys and then The Rock.
Okay.
He goes, you come on the set, man, everybody, he goes, the studio's trying to sabotage you. They're sabotaging you with the budget. The crew sabotages you. It's super weird, you know? And then they go, well, now what? And he goes, now I screw everybody over. He was totally honest about it. He goes, now I call the shots and I treat everybody like shit. He goes, I'm going to get even. I want to get even for a while. And and I was like, I get that, you know, at least he's honest about it.
Yeah.
And I remember his deal was like for 15 million, which everybody's like, holy shit. Doesn't even sound like that, you know? And he talked about, and this is important, by the way, in business. He goes, don't ever sign a $15 million deal on a plane with Michael Eisner feeding you cocktails. He goes, I could have made a lot more money and I screwed up. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And I like that business stuff because it's important.
Mhm,
You know, I mean, don't get screwed over.
Yeah.
And don't work for free ever.
Oh no.
The
No,
only
I
time
learned
you work
that.
for free is because you're doing pro bono work, you know, for a
Yeah.
charity or something, or a cause you believe in. That's all great. and if you are doing it for a charity, don't take anybody's crap. You know what I mean? Especially if you're at a certain level of like in your career or whatever. It's like, you ain't over art directing me. I'll work with you, but you're getting my services for free and you're getting really good work for free. If you think I'm going to do this by committee, you're out of your mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you go on location, you're number one, you can, and at Marchfield, you can stick your head in the wheel well. You can see how everything works.
Yeah.
Get right up on it and draw wheel assemblies and all that kind of stuff. Surface details. And then you can shift your view. Now you go, what does it look like from this view? I'm going to draw that. What does it look like? I'm going to do a side view of it. You know, and you got all this stuff that you're learning, all this shape language you're learning. Then when you go back to your studio or work or whatever, you start throwing all that stuff down. Like now you start making stuff up because you got a lot of shape language in your head and you've sat around and you've really thought it through, right?
Right.
And I'm going to supplement that with photographs. but the photographs are probably going to be for big shape ideas and things like that. And then I'm going to know how to manage the surface from a believable perspective, right? You know, and the same thing, like I've said with buildings and things like that. If I mean, if you're working on film or something, a lot of times, if you're doing the Hunchback, they're going to send you to Paris or whatever, right?
Right.
And then one of the things about that is A, you're immersing yourself in your subject matter, and B, you're going to see so much stuff that you're going to get so many ideas out of that you never would have got if you're looking at photographs. And part of it is just like, it's cultural stuff. It's maybe cultural mannerisms. It's going to be that you went around to the backs of these buildings. You went down alleyways and really went, wow, the back of these kind of buildings is interesting. Look how they do the back porches. What's that for? Oh, they had that for, I don't know. That's where they dump the soup out or whatever, just weird stuff. Oh, that's a trip. Or you see like weird things in the structure and they have weird purposes that long ago went away, right? Like that, right? Go in the alleyways behind, there's really good alleyways. I always take my class there, but of course you can't go there. There's really good alleys behind Chinatown in LA.
Okay.
If you want those like tenement looking things with the laundry hanging between them.
Okay.
Really fun.
They do that a lot in movies and like animated movies and stuff, like that pan down kind of a thing.
It irritates me when I look at it and I go, you made that up. Yeah, but and then they'll go, oh, it's just an alley or whatever. I go, no, it's not just an alley, man. Like that is an opportunity to draw something super cool,
Yeah. I was hoping that you could take a look at mine to like see, because I feel like I've made a little bit of progress this week. Like having gone to March Fields, I don't know, I just had like a great experience. Good. And it kind of opened up this new love of drawing. Like good. I feel like I've just been like kind of around the OC bubble and had been needing to get out. And so yeah, I don't know. I wanted to see if there was anything I could work on that you think I could improve on and stuff.
One of the things about this class when I started it was what you just said. I wanted it to be experiential, and I wanted people to have that feeling of like, I don't know, like when I go draw somewhere, it's super euphoric. You know what I mean? Like it just feels magical. I always say it's like once you get like locked into your drawing and you're in the zone, it feels like you enter a portal and you see the world a whole different way. Like there's this other world that nobody else sees. Does that make sense? And it's exciting. Like you said, it's just like, man, this is just cool. You know what I mean? And it's like when people don't do that, like when I get people, I think I've said this in this class, I've had people in this class, so they go, and everybody knows what this class is. Okay. And they go, oh, can we just stay, do all the field trips around here? I always go, get out of my class, man. Like you're not good material for this class if you're that timid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then sometimes we see really interesting things. Last time we were drawing boats down to San Pedro, dolphins showed up, seals showed up.
Yeah.
We went and had a blast and ate food and listened to mariachi bands. And I want to get people out there, especially this generation. They just don't feel like they get out enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100% agree.
And I want them to get addicted to a sketchbook where that magic, hopefully what you just said, that magical thing happens where you just get addicted to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all I want to do all the time. Like the reason I want to go on a road trip to Little Rock is to paint and draw. Just to go somewhere and go, ooh, this is a cool little scene, and set up my paint and draw or whatever, or paint. I mean, that's all I ever think about.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do more because I was just having a blast. The first couple of pages, I believe it's 1 through 4. Those were from the Fullerton Airport.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the ones where I start throwing down marker, that's where it's March Fields. But yeah, I didn't do more because I was just looking around the museum, and then the front desk people were just telling me about stuff. I don't know, just everything that you said about like how they love it.
Yeah.
So it makes you love it even more. And then I like went outside and the jets are taking off. I saw like 4 or 5 jets take off, and I'm just like, you feel it like in your heart and soul.
Yeah.
I called my brother, and
I love old dudes with like a passion for something, or I love old dudes with good stories. And when when we accidentally went there on a field trip when there was an air show, which turned out to be really cool, but because they get really crowded though, so some students kind of went on the other side because they couldn't get in, and I didn't know it was happening that day. I met so many cool people that day. And I would never drink on a field trip or anything, but I was like, screw it, I'm gonna have a beer. And I sat down at this table because they were kind of communal tables. They don't usually have that there. And I talked to a dude who worked on the Apollo program. I talked to a dude who's like an aerospace engineer in like the 70s, which I'm totally fascinated by that period in aerospace, and 60s and 70s. I mean, all these interesting people, you know, they're all aerospace nuts or airplanes or whatever, military stuff. Learned so much stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And then those old dudes, like you said, that, you know, whenever I'm there, when I take students there, they always roll up on those golf carts and they jump out and they just start telling everybody what they're looking at and stuff. And it's super cool.
That's what he told me. He's like, oh, you did the B-40 something or whatever. And I was like, I have no clue what any of these planes are. But he's like, now that you drew them, you need to learn the history about them and you need to read all the plaques and this, that, and the other. I was like, he's like, so you need to get back here. And I was like, okay, I will.
Yeah, but that's really cool. You know, because they're stoked. They'd love it when young people show up. You know, and when I bring in 30 young people, they love it. I had a weird history with them. I think I told you guys, but now it's all cool. You know, this one, I think that wing I feels like this wing probably went a little more like that, but I don't know though, because I'm not looking at it, because it could have done that.
It was one of those ones that was hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, okay. Now here, and I think you started course correcting on this. Like, be careful here where they just sort of end this hatching. Yeah. But one thing, like even here, I probably wouldn't have put it so dense. Maybe I could probably put a little crosshatch over the top of that and start to get a little bit of a core there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it turns a little bit. I'm really big on finish and transition, right?
Okay.
That's just my, you know, and then here, was this sort of a beveled under edge?
I don't know. It was really far. I was
Feels like
sitting.
it's doing this. It feels like it's sort of got a beveled edge here, which is fine. But I would have sort of just, when I'm putting in that kind of hatch mark, I'm going to follow that form a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll turn it.
To be honest, I don't love cross hatching. And when I was doing these ones, these are the Fullerton ones. I didn't have any sort of like marker to lay down like a dark. Like,
well, that's good, because you want to learn a variety of things, and you'll land on the ones you like.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm a big, especially if you want to go into the commercial world, you know, of design or whatever, especially like, you know, industrial design, entertainment design, things like that. I think it's good to have a variety of techniques, right? Because sometimes you just go, I'm going to do the, I mean, I used to do this at Imaginary, and it always blew my mind that anybody even gave a shit, because there's so many amazingly talented people there. And I go, I'm gonna do this on Canson paper. And it was like the computer hadn't even taken over or anything yet. So it was kind of weird to me. But I want to do this technique or that. And like I did an old brown line technique where I took a drawing, I wrinkled it all up, flattened it back out, took it down to the blue printer. They had this process called brown lining. So when I got it back, it looked like an old parchment drawing or something on old paper. And then I went over it and rendered it out with markers and gouache and stuff like that. And everybody's like, wow, that's cool. And I'm like, you guys invented this stuff. You know what I mean? But it's like people are already not using it. So by going back to one of those techniques, it popped, you know?
Right. That's the one that I was telling you about, where I was kind of getting off because I was sitting underneath it.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
What I would do,
that was my first attempt.
I would get this shadow in here.
Okay.
However you want to do it. It could just be a big, you know, black marker shadow. That's fine. It's got to get grounded, right?
Okay.
I think anything like this one is, but then this one's off, right?
Yeah.
You got to watch that. I do that all the time. I'm drawing. I'm like, wow, this looks pretty cool. And all of a sudden I put that back wheel back there and I go, holy shit, it's 3 feet off the ground. know? Damn it. And it's like, I can't really fix that because if I make that wheel bigger or something, I guess I can make the apparatus. It throws it all off.
Yeah. And in these ones, I was trying to think less and just throw it down. My process was kind of just like ballpoint pen to sort of get like the base image. And then I was kind of going in like faster, I guess. And
sorry.
I'm not trying to go fast. I'm trying to just not draw. I'm trying to sketch.
Yes,
So
exactly right.
I'm trying to let loose a little bit and let it be a little bit freer, because I find when I'm drawing, I'm taking, 3 hours to do, a propeller, and I don't need to do that.
And what's weird about it? What's weird about that? It doesn't usually, this is another thing about why I want to do this class, is there's very much, and it's just normal. When people look at things, what do they always say? Oh, there's so much detail, right? And you look at it and go, there's no detail. But that sort of is the water, when it's, and I always wonder if this is just an American thing, but people always come up to me and they go, oh, they always have to tell me some relative of theirs or whatever that's amazing. And they go, oh, my nephew's so amazing. He's an artist or whatever. And he puts, there's so much detail. He can draw just like a photograph. And in my mind, I'm going, who gives a shit if he can draw like a photograph? You know what I mean? Like, that's not hard to do. It's really not that hard to do. Once you know how to do it. But, and then and the reason why you get these weird, wonky, out of proportion drawings all the time with people is they're taught, and this is what bothers me about basic drawing, and it's everywhere they teach it almost. It's this like, hey everybody, this is drawing, it's like this, it's like really tight, and what happens is everything starts to get wonky and drift and get out of proportion because you're not throwing that down, thinking about the whole balance and structure and proportion of everything. Does that make sense? And when you're doing that, now you can, and I still say, if you are going to do a tight drawing, which is fine, you start like this still. And then you tighten it up a little bit. And really the tightening up is probably going to be the rendering process, balancing it out, finishing it out a little more, but you still want to start this way. And it always feels like when people go into basic drawing, then I have to undo all that.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do that, you're going to do what happened to me, where at first I go, okay, I guess this is how you draw. And then 5 years later, you're like, man, I got to get this crap out of my drawing. It sucks.
Yeah.
My drawings are all stiff because somebody showed me this stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. When I took a class with Norm, which was a class sort of similar to this, it broke everything wide open for me. You know what I mean? That's where I finally went, okay, I've hit this thing. I can do this. Because the first time we went out, I did okay. I did pretty good. And I think we went to the Arboretum or something. And it gave me confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're at Art Center, you need some confidence, man, because there's a lot of people kicking your ass all the time.
Yeah.
Or at Fullerton or wherever. Okay, so when you're throwing down this kind of thing, this plane, try and make sure if there's an angle here, that you get that angle in there. And that way you can place that wheel. Right? On the same ground plane. Does that make sense? What I always do is I usually put this cylinder down. And then I go, all right, there's this thing here. And then I go, okay, where does that canopy start? Right there. And then I go, where does that canopy end? Right about there. And then how far is the tail fin to the back of the canopy? And if I place all those things correctly, I'm in pretty good shape. Okay. Right? And then I go, where's the strut or the framework on the canopy? There's one. And now I got a bunch of places to line up, and I go, okay, this wheel lands right about there from the canopy on that shape. There it is. This comes out about there. Where does this wheel land? It lands right there and about where that lands. Okay, good. I can treat these also I can treat this like a cylinder because they gotta make sense together, right? And then I can put this little guy back here, put the little wood block or whatever they call that little block right there. Then I go, Where's the wing? Oh, the wing starts right about with the same lineup with the front of this or wherever it is. Where does it go from here? Oh, it goes up through the wing, and not in your case, but goes up through the thing right there. And if I'm lucky and it fall, you know, it's always going to fall in all these things from a spatial relationship. They're going to make sense. And then the whole thing's going to be in proportion because I'm boom, 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 right? So always look for this. And by the way, this line of action, whatever you want to call it, is important also if I'm drawing a human. Like I do this all the time. Somebody's like sitting there reading or something, and I'm drawing them, and I go, and their book's down here, and I go, well, this head actually does this. You know what I mean? It's the same line of action. Like I want to make sure that I'm tilting things correctly right off the bat. And with people, it's going to get really important because it speaks. If I have somebody reading like this and they're looking right here, it's not going to look right. So then I look at that relationship here right off the bat, and I'll do the same thing with this, right? Because everything relates to everything. Everything is relative. This is a pretty good one though. So is the March filled ones are later?
Yeah, the ones with the marker, like the shadowing, are March fields.
That's yeah, they're getting better and better as you go.
Yeah.
You know, if you look back on the first couple, like these compared to this one,
yeah,
it's night and day, right? Think about that core. If there's a core here down that, this is a big cylinder, man. So I always look for that core, and you're going to get, you know, sometimes it's not there. I put it there because you're getting this light from the top. You know, you got this cylinder. And you're getting this light from the top, and then you're also getting all this bounce light from here. So it's going to push that core right there, right? And that is one of those things that's going to turn the shit out of it, right? And those little simple things that you learn in basic drawing that nobody told me why I was learning are why you learn those things, right? To me, it was an abstraction because nobody told me why I was doing it. Like, oh, that was helpful. I just spent a week rendering a cylinder in the primitive shapes. I don't know why. That's why. Was this one really this stubby?
Probably not, but I don't know. I feel like I started to stylize them a little bit, like unintentionally.
Yeah.
But it was smaller than these other ones.
I think I know which this is. I think these are the fun ones where you start to go, okay, I gotta go.
They have a lot of character, you know, like each one of them have a lot of character. And I feel like
I go, I'm gonna really stubby this thing up.
Yeah.
And, you know, just play around with the proportions or something. They have one, I think it's there. They have one that is really like a little stubby, funny looking plane. This one's pretty good here.
Thank you.
Right, you're starting to get that core right there on the leading edge of that wing. Yeah? Now watch this one because it's sort of bowing out. It's bowing out as it's coming towards me. I get that. Make sure it doesn't feel like it's happening too fast.
Okay.
Because it's very pinched on the other end. You know, make sure that transition is working, yeah?
Okay.
This over here again, and this is just a technique. You can do it like this, it's fine. But if you like, if you would have taken a white Prisma, kind of just danced over that a little bit.
Yeah.
Put that strut on the other side, Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and then maybe a little specular. Oops, that's way too much. See, I have no control of my hand today, man. It's weird. See how that really turned it?
Yeah. When I got over there, I was all the way in Riverside, and I went, dang it, I forgot my any kind of white, so had to make do.
The good thing is that like Prisma, you can actually get it like Michael's. Like I just went down to Michael's to get some color erase stuff. They don't even have color erase. They have Prisma, but they don't have color. That place is like frustrating.
I live pretty close to Art Supply Warehouse, so that's kind of
the best one.
That's kind of my go-to now.
Carter Sexton, man. Go to Carter Sexton in North Hollywood.
Oof, that's a drive.
If you're like an art supply, if you're like an art supply dork like I am, this is bitching, man.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's an old school art store. I hope it never goes away. I hope it hasn't gone away. If I'm in that area, it's in a weird area. It's not like it's sort of like art supply warehouse is, where it's like unless you live over there or something, you have no reason to go over there. Like what's over there? There's nothing over there.
Yeah.
My dealership, when I had a Lexus, was down the street from it, so that was kind of cool. So I'm like, oh, every time I go to the dealer, I'll go over to art supply warehouse.
Yeah.
But I don't, I got rid of the Lexus. Okay, so does that all make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Downtown LA is a really fun place to go draw. I just talked to somebody yesterday and I mentioned that, and they go, why would you go to downtown LA? I'm like, really? Why wouldn't I? You know what I mean?
Right. I'm gonna be honest, I don't love going to LA, but
I do. I wouldn't want to live there
pushes me
anymore.
out of it.
I wouldn't. I think if you went to the right places, you would.
Okay.
Yeah, you would. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in any big city. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up there, so
Where were you at?
I was in East LA like a lot of my childhood.
Okay. Yeah,
so like my grandma, her house is over there, so I spent a lot of time there, and just I don't know, the one-way traffic kind of thing. Sometimes when you get like deeper into downtown LA and stuff, just it's a headache.
Yeah, once you get parked, it's fun. The parking's not fun, but once you get,
I was gonna say,
like when I go to Alvera Street, it's like if you've never been there, if you're like a tourist going there, you wouldn't have any idea where to park.
Yeah,
because they don't make it obvious. And then like the one parking lot is like you go down Cesar Chavez, you make a left, then you go down the stand. It looks like a driveway past that little place where everybody does quinceañeras and all that, and then you turn left onto Main, and then you go up, and then you turn into the parking lot. It's like, how would anybody know this?
Right.
You know, but once you're parked there, you can go to Union Station, you can walk down to Chinatown, you can go right on, you can go towards the back, out the back of it, and you got a big view of City Hall. You can walk down into the downtown area. I mean, you can hit kind of everything right from that one spot. Yeah. Noted.
So just get parked.
Yeah, you go get a number one. You go get a number one at Salita Lindo. And then you sketch some more, and you get hungry, and then you go down to Felipe's and you get a beef dip sandwich, and then you go down to Chinatown and eat again, right? Hop Louie's is gone now, which sucks. And then you could go down Grand by where the Mocha is and get these killer views right from where the Angel's Flight is, right?
I don't even know where all this stuff is. Like I never
Angel's
really
Flight's right.
ventured into it.
Okay, you know where the Grand Central Market is?
No.
Okay, that's another place that used to be super cool. It's starting to become uncool, but it's still kind of cool. But anyway, right across the street is Angel's Flight, which is a funicular that goes up the hill. Then it goes to this spectacular like little station that has the weirdest shade of orange. It's painted the weirdest shade of orange. But from up there, you get this great view of the city where it doesn't have any distinctive LA stuff. So again, if I want to go draw like a cityscape or something like that and get some ideas or whatever, that's a great place because it doesn't have city halls, you know, all the landmark stuff. It looks like it could be Chicago. It looks like it could be LA. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's really, you know, old brick buildings, all that kind of, or if you go on the if you know when you're going down the 10 and downtown LA is over to the left or the right. If you go the other way, if you get off like, you know, any of those streets that go that way, Alameda, any of them, you can go left and it just goes into this really cool like industrial area. Really cool industrial area. And then, you know, you just keep going down because that's the trade route. Alameda is a trade route. I think that they take all the way down to the Port of LA. Right. So it's just grimy and industrial. It's perfect. I love those places. Plus, you wander around those places, you just see the weirdest shit. Like you see people live in these weird areas, and you're like, what a weird place to live. You know what I mean? And then sometimes they'll come up and ask me stuff, and it's like, it gives me an opportunity to go, where do you live? And they're like, oh, I live right up there. And I go, that looks like an industrial building. Like, no, it's some rooms up there. I go,
Yeah.
why do you live here? And he's like, well, I'm broke or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's how I felt about Riverside.
Yeah, it's all, it's downtown Riverside, by the way, is cool.
Noted.
Yeah. There's a place called Prohibition. There's a restaurant. There's a few good restaurants there, or the Mission Inn's there. That's a cool place to go get lunch. Anyway, let me bounce through these.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
Does anybody else have questions?
Mike,
Yeah,
can you help me with mine?
I can barely hear you.
Can you help me with mine?
Sure. Where are they? Okay, there. Actually, these look pretty good. What are you having trouble with?
I struggled a lot with the planes. I didn't really know how to like draw the shapes.
These don't look bad to me.
Oh.
Like this right here, I like the thinking on this one. Let me.
Oh yeah, that one Daniel kind of helped me with. Like
That
I was
one
just
what?
like, that's the one. Because I was just drawing what I saw, and then Daniel helped me like break it down to like simple form. So
Oh, Daniel.
that's
Okay.
why it looks better. Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel's been there quite a bit. This is nice. This is pretty good.
Oh, okay.
That's
That one was,
that's interesting. I like that.
oh, that one was like super big and like super close up, so it was like kind of hard to draw.
Yeah, make sure you're getting into a position where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. Like right now is not the time to go, I'm going to take on this crazy view. It's like you're still learning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then do that. Once you start getting confident, go, okay, now I'm going to do a crazy view.
Okay.
Where's this at?
That's just in front of my house.
Is that just the ink from the other side?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's because I paint and I just tend to think abstractly. I mean, I don't paint abstractly, but I think abstractly.
Uh-huh.
And then I look at that and I go, ooh, it's the same thing as I was just talking about, where something makes a mark and people go, well, that's not right. And it's like, no, it's not right, but it's cool. Then I look at this and go, okay, I got ink coming through. What can I do with that? Maybe I'll look at the shape and go, oh, I can draw the plane right here and that'll show that shadow value right there in a sort of abstract way,
Oh, wow, that's like next level. Can you help me with my wheels? Like.
Oh, that one right here.
Perspective.
Okay, so here you're getting a lot of, it's not just the wheels, you're getting a lot of oops. Oh, wait, I want to do this. So what's happening here is this wheel is facing me straight forward. Almost, right?
Wait, the one on the right?
The one on the back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is what you got to think about. And then this one is starting to go into perspective a little bit.
Right.
So both of them should have been following that same perspective, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, look at this. Okay, so the car, this part of the car here is kind of, again, sort of showing it from a side view here a little bit. Okay, but then this is starting to bend in a different way. Does that make sense? It's bending off over here. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, you're not. Okay, so here's the front of the car. You're showing me multiple views of the same thing. Like Picasso, right? Where they got the head this way, and two eyes on this side, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see that.
So you're showing me this wheel straight on. You're kind of showing me the side of the car that I'm looking at straight on. This is starting to go into perspective, and then this perspective goes off in a weird direction, right?
I see.
Where I think if you looked at it like this, if you want to go, I know I'm always going, don't put everything in cubes and all that, but from a standpoint of learning, it's fine. Okay.
Right.
And sometimes I throw that down. I throw down a ghost, like I said, a cylinder or something, so I have something to build over. But you might want to think of this car more, because I think it was probably more in a 3/4 view.
Yeah, it was from the behind.
You want to maybe set that up right away.
Right. Okay.
And go, okay, this wheel now is going to do that. This is going to be a little further back. This is going to be a little further back. There's the hub. How dark, and now I go, okay, I kind of got that. And then I got this, however this works. And I sort of, and then I break it here, put a door in. And now I've sort of got this thing that I know is kind of in perspective. And then look at however this is leaning, that major axis, right? So there's a line right down there. You got to learn to see that. How narrow is that ellipse? Because the more I open that ellipse, then I got a circle and I'm looking straight at it, right? And then as I turn it, it's going to shrink like that, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there's an imaginary cylinder running across the whole car here because both of these tires relate to each other.
Right.
So that's where that one would fall, okay? And then I can start coming in here and going, okay, where's my door handles? Where's this? There's a little thing there. There's usually a thing there. Frame, front, seats. Where's the, and then put in my ground shadow. Put in, like, my car has this little weird fin on it right there. Put that back window in there. License plate. So on and so forth. Does that make sense? Does that answer that?
Yeah. I think I was struggling with seeing how the ellipses, which way they're leaning.
They're going to lean. The major axis is going to lean towards the vanishing point over there, right? So when you're looking at a vehicle like in this position or whatever, they're not going to go this way. See how weird that looks? They're going to lean that way. And try and just throw an axis through them. And a lot of times, like I said, I'm going to turn that board some way to throw down those ellipses. A lot of times I just ghost a little axis line in there. So I flip it, I know where I'm trying to hit. I know the tips of my ellipse need to hit that angle. So then I'm hitting my major axis the way it's leaning. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
And just remember, and by the way, a lot of times if people put a car this way, like facing me, let's say, they'll narrow this ellipse down, and this one will be a little more like that. And what does that do? It starts to make the tires look like they're turned like that.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember getting all screwed up on that when I was learning it, but then I realized I'm like, oh, the ellipse just gets narrower. Like I stopped thinking of the tire as a tire. Then I go, oh, the ellipse just gets narrower. And then that's going to look like it's turning towards me or away from me or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do that because it's a more dynamic looking, if they're doing like a car design, they might turn the tires just because it's something that looks a little more dynamic. Right.
Right. How would you do
It's a good one right here.
Oh.
Where's that at?
It was at the Lion Air Museum.
Oh man, you guys are getting out. That's cool, man. What were we gonna say?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Can we look at this one and can you help me with the shading and the lighting? I didn't.
Yeah. All right. So you're talking about this one here, right?
Yeah.
One thing I would have done is I would have gave this a ground shadow.
Okay.
That'll ground it. Not a sloppy one like I just did. This tire is making where it's placed is starting to make so these are all perspective things, okay?
Okay.
It's starting to make the car feel like it's very narrow. Like it's thin this way. Now it doesn't, if I'm not looking at that, it actually doesn't feel like that. It feels pretty good. I think it's just that tire. Maybe it probably didn't follow. Yeah, I guess it did. Because here's the front of the thing. And again, you can think of this as one cylinder going through here
Okay.
because they relate to each other. And if I pull it over a little bit, it looks a little wider.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the light was overhead, obviously, right?
It was like going in all different directions, so it was kind of hard.
Well, I pick one when I get
Okay.
that. Or if it's cool looking, if it's lighting the surface of the car in a cool way, then I'll use it. But if it's not, I won't.
Okay.
This page is good. I think this page is really good. Is this later?
That's the third page. Yeah, it's the second day. So
Now, another thing I do is I come in here and I go a little heavier on these lines here, maybe back here, because that's also going to help me where the light is. See how that, and also when I go in with a fatter line down there, then I go with a fatter pen, I go and I throw it down and I clean up all my line work that way. So it starts to look more mechanical, right?
Okay.
Here, maybe. I love this. I might have put a little core on there. That's also just something that's turning right before it goes into the light. And then I might have gone ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I'm realizing that like the cleaner my lines are, the more like accurate or like it looks better for mechanical stuff.
Yeah, that's that whole thing, like boom, like throw it down. Like you can you can adjust it. Where people I think go wrong is they think like when they see the plane drawings and all that stuff I did, they look very clean. So they go, holy shit, they go, do you put pen or pencil down? I go, no, I just go in with a pen. And they don't realize it's like, it didn't get thrown down clean like that. It got thrown down fairly clean, but then I had to adjust. And then I have little things that I do like that where I go, okay, now I got a ground or I got the shadow values away from the light. I'm going to go in with my fat pen and go, and now I cleaned up any dirty lines or anything I have in there because it covers it right up.
Yeah.
Right. And then I go over and I pick the ones where I go, okay, I like that arc right there. I'm going to go whoop right over it. And that's my heavier line or whatever. And it starts to make it look like I threw it all down in the moment, which I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the last time I just went to, I just told you, I just went to Palm Springs Air Museum. I haven't gone and drawn planes in a while. I totally sucked. Okay. And part of it, by the way, was because I went in with my big board, my like tabloid size board. It was too big. Like I shouldn't have done that. That screwed me all up because I was drawing too big. I wasn't warmed up. You know, if I would have warmed up on my smaller paper and done smaller drawings and got warmed up, it would have been fine. But it sucked. I didn't get any drawings I really liked. That's why I didn't post it.
That's reassuring.
Huh?
That's reassuring. That like not every time
Oh
you
shit.
go out.
The only way I would be reasonably consistent is if somebody's paying me. I mean, I'm reasonably consistent, but if I go have a bad day, whatever, I had a bad day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they always say, what's that stupid saying? A bad day fishing is better than a work day, right? A bad day drawing is better than a day not drawing.
That's true.
Right? Because I'm still out. I'm still out in the air. I'm having an adventure. It always feels like an adventure to me. It's weird though. The people at the Palm Springs Museum, they could care less. They didn't talk to me at all. They weren't like the dudes over at March. Those dudes are cool. March is my place. Okay, so like here, oops. Okay, so let's say the light's here. Okay, so we're going to get some light coming across here probably. And what you want to do is, okay, so what's happening here in this transition, it's going very dark to mid-tone, right?
Okay.
I think you probably want to sneak up on that a little more.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how dark that value was, but I might roll it out and I might go, because these are very bulby shapes. So again, I might come in here and see if I can find a little core to turn this a little bit. Does that make sense? And that also might be my transition. I might go, I might go Yeah, people do it in life drawing all the time. They put a core and then the whole shadow value to transition to the light. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So whenever you're going from a darker value to a lighter value, you got to make sure you're not just going dark, bang, light, right? You want to go,
Right.
you want to roll it out a little bit. That's why, you know, you can do it marker or whatever you want to do it with. And I might use that. I might even use the shine here. If there's a shine, so there's a couple of ways I could do it. If there's a shine here, I might put it right in that transition if that's where it lands. And then it's going to transition a little bit because it's not just going dark light. It's going dark, boom, highlight, bam, into the midtone, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I'd probably put a couple of little highlights in there. That's really shiny. Now here on this is something I always do with this kind of thing. Not always, but okay. See that ring around that's probably chrome, right?
Yeah.
Watch, it'll go more chromey if I put like a core reflection in here. See what I mean? See how it gets more shiny?
Oh wow, yeah.
Why? Because when you light a cylinder, when I light a cylinder, there's a couple things. If I go in here and I go, damn it, hang on. And I go, oops. And I put that in, it doesn't feel all that shiny yet, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I go in and I put a sharper mark in there, like a little more like that. Let me get a bigger brush. And I put a clear, like a sharper thing in here with a sharper core, it'll start to get more shiny. And then if I go, you know, right next to that, oops, then I put my highlight, it'll start to get really shiny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, the shadow will it'll get harder edged. And usually it does this in a reflection, like a hard reflection in chrome or something. The shadow or the core, what it's really doing there usually is it's like picking something up in the reflection and it's squishing it all into like a shadow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it usually tends to be pretty hard edged, and then it'll get a highlight right next to that core and then go off into the mid-tone. Do you see how it makes it shinier?
Yeah. Okay.
But if that cylinder was made of wood, then that core shadow is probably going to dissipate off and be a softer edge because it's not glass or chrome, right?
Okay.
So if you know that, then you can apply that to things like this headlight.
Okay.
Okay. And the other thing is I probably see a little bit more of the other one over here. And then same deal. I'm going to go. Put a little bit, God damn it. Put a little bit of that light in there. You know, a little bit of the, whatever you call it, the reflection. I'd look for something in here in this bumper. Was it chrome? It's chrome, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for are abstract shapes in those forms. Okay. With, now you know this. Okay. So like when I look at the bumper, I go, okay, that's round, like this shape here. These little, whatever those are, those little things. They're also like a little bit round. They're like a part of a cylinder. So I probably can look at it and go, oh, that's why it's doing that. And I'll just find the shapes and knock in a couple. I don't overdo it. I just, if you're noticing, it's just knowing where to place it and how it works and going bing, and you don't hardly do anything and it looks all chromy, right?
Yeah.
Because that's, again, when people look at it and they go, it blows people's minds when you draw that stuff in draw it at all. But if you draw it in 5 minutes, they're like, holy crap. Because what they're seeing looks super complicated, You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize it's like, it's not, I mean, it is complicated, but it's not,
Mm-hmm.
it only takes 5 minutes to do it because it's just knowing where to put what, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I always look at it.
Mm-hmm. It's
When I
kind
was,
of like,
go ahead.
it's kind of like those, because I was like watching James Gurney paint these
Yeah.
plein air painting things, and then like he goes from like these like really abstract looking shapes, and then like I look down at my paper, and then I look up, and then only like 30 seconds has passed, but all of a sudden it starts looking like a really complex thing because he knows like where to put like the shapes and the
Yeah,
shadows.
what he's doing is very simple silhouettes.
Mm,
If you notice, if you look at what he's doing, which is a common thing, you build like, you put the drawing down and then he starts painting all the shadow values around the leaves.
right.
Then he knocks in the leaves and then he starts knocking into the individual leaves, the shading. And he just does that with, just like we were looking at that painting he was doing with that musician. He knocked the
Mhm.
whole face into 2 values.
Right.
So now you got this big, it's the exact same thing we're doing here. So now you got this
Right.
big silhouette and you go, okay,
Mhm.
now I just got to go into the highlights or the midtone or whatever it was. I think you put down the midtone. Now I just got to go to the highs. Okay, now there's some little darks inside the eye socket, but you got this solid structure there to start building around, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing you're doing here.
Okay.
Big shapes, establish the big shapes, go to the next
Mhm.
smallest shapes, a couple of smaller shapes, and you're out,
Mhm.
right? And then know
Yeah.
some of this information. Some of this information about core simple primitive shapes and why a cylinder, if it's chrome, the reflection gets harder edged. It's also going to have a specularity right next to that core usually.
Yeah.
Where, and again, wood, matte surface things, they're going to dissipate off of the softer edge. They're still going to have a core, but it's going to be softer. And then inside of that core, there might be a little darker thing. And the more I do that, the harder and more reflective it gets, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're looking, look, if you're looking at this thing, there's kind of a core, or there's kind of a cylinder there.
Yeah.
This is more of a square. There's kind of part of a cylinder there, probably that. So then I can start thinking about all those things in the same way I'm thinking about this thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then when I'm looking at this bumper, same thing. This has probably got form to it. So I just kind of go, oh, it's kind of a cylinder. Then I just look at it and I go, where are the dark values in that core or in that bumper? Okay, there's one that runs under there. That makes sense because that's where it turns. And then I can just hit a highlight and a specular highlight on top of it, and boom, it looks like chrome, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there going, I got to get every little shape there. Okay. I'm not doing that. I'm simplifying it
Okay.
based on my knowledge of how that works, and then I can make it look all chromy and like it's tough. I used to see it when I was a student, because there was all this airbrush crap at the time, and it was like, people or those paintings. I still see people do this. There's always some artist out there, or a couple of them, that draw like big or paint big. They can be oil paintings or whatever, canvases of like a close-up of some part of a Harley Davidson. And they just render the crap out of it. And it's like all these reflections and core, they're hideous. And everybody looks at it and goes, oh, wow, man. It's like, oh, wow, nothing. It's a crappy painting. I mean, it's not interesting. It's an exercise in rendering. Who cares? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, they know how to paint all those reflections and things. What's all the reflections and things? A bunch of shapes. It's just not that hard to do, but everybody thinks it's amazing. It's like, it just looks like kind of like an attempt to look like a photograph. I don't find it interesting at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
If you want, I don't find Harleys interesting at all. I don't find the culture around it interesting, and I don't find the people who ride them interesting. You know what I mean? But that's, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. But, and then one time I saw a plein air painter. I wish I could find this painting. He did a painting. It was just like the outside of a bar or something during the day. And there was like a Harley sitting in front of it. And this guy painted it all plein airy. It was bitching. Like that painting I dug, you know what I mean? Because it's like, it transcends the subject matter. I don't care that I'm not into Harleys. That's a cool painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like when the Masters of the American West show is going on at the Autry, I'll go, hey, we're going to go see that. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm not into cowboy shit. And I don't give a shit if it's about cowboys. These are the best painters on the West Coast. This is one of the best painting shows on the West Coast. Who cares what the subject matter is? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if they're drawing My Little Pony. If they're painting it like that, I'm in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they go and they see this, you know, because it's not, when we say Western genre, it's not just cowboys and all that. It's landscape, it's seascapes, it's, you know, and, you know, ranch life and all that. But when you go, every time they go there, they just get their mind blown. You know what I mean? They just go, they've never usually ever seen paintings like that. You know what I mean? And I've had them, and I think I said this in here. This is how weird it is for this generation now. They always go, is that digital? And I'm like, no, it's oil paint. But it's hard for them. They go, and then they just go, oh, what? You know, it's just, you know, it's weird because I didn't grow up. I grew up the other way. There was no digital. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then if you go further back, if you ever go back further in when they first figured out film, like the Lumiere brothers or whatever, then they put up a sheet or whatever, and they just show everyday mundane stuff, right? And I never thought about this until I took a film class. So they would just take like workers leaving work because it was just amazing to see anything on film, right? Then they had one where this train's coming around a track, right? They were like little 2-minute, 30-second things or whatever. And when that train would come around the track, everybody'd go, right? They'd all try to get out of the way, right? And the reason, you know, like you look at that now and you go, well, that's silly. But then they go, my teacher goes, no, it's not silly because up until that moment, anything that was moving like that was real.
Yeah.
Like this was a whole new concept.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then digital comes along from my generation. Well, anything that was painted before digital was paint. You know what I mean? And you know, now we're moving into all these other things. And now the technology moves so fast, you guys are going to have to stay on top of that stuff.
Yeah.
It just technology begats technology. Does this all make sense?
Yeah.
So we're really talking about some basic perspective things.
Yeah.
But if you look at this page, is this page later than this page? Okay, these two are night and day different. I mean, this is a good drawing. Both of these drawings.
Oh, okay.
Like you're starting to get it here. This tire's a little forward, feels like. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, just little things like that.
Okay.
But this is good. This one's getting a little weird, right?
Yeah, that one's really hard. That was my first play drawing, so I was like really struggling.
If you can, and it looks like you're starting to get it here, this whole page, actually. You're starting to see it correctly here, in my opinion. But that's the one you said you and Daniel were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, good. Then he gave you some good advice, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is the way you kind of want to see it here, to me. Like you sort of take it out of, it's a plane, and you just kind of go, okay, it's this shape. Like you can even squint down and just go, what is that silhouette? Right? Because if you, and this again comes down to how we're seeing, right? If you stop going, oh, it's people. Oh, it's a lot of people. Oh, I'm shit at buildings. Oh God, it's planes. I'm terrible at planes. If you stop doing that, hopefully you will after this class, and just go, it shapes. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? It's just shapes. And then I abstract it. I squint down. I go, what is that shape? Oh, okay, that's the shape. That's simple. But once my brain goes, oh, it's a plane, then it's not simple.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I used to tell myself all the time when I was in college, especially at Fullerton, I would always tell myself, I'd go, all you got to do is put the right mark in the right place. That's all you got to do. It's simple. And I needed to do that in my brain. So I wasn't like overwhelmed with like, you know, I want to be as good as I'm seeing in my head. I wasn't overwhelmed by that because I go, all you got to do is put the right mark in the right place. That's all you got to do. And then you just do a bunch of those marks in the right place and the whole thing looks cool. And by breaking that psychology down for me, it really helped me. You know, because I think a lot of art making, drawing, all of it, I feel like a lot of it's psychology. That's why you always hear about the fear of the white page or the white canvas, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, I gotta start a painting. It's like, find a process you like, and then that doesn't happen. Get in a sketchbook and draw all the time like we're doing. And now hopefully you guys already should be doing this where you're not all weird about putting shit in your sketchbook anymore, right?
Yeah. I definitely felt that this week. I was just like trying to learn rather than like.
It's
just
so
trying to-
valuable to get over that nonsense because I think everybody goes through this thing where I did, where I don't know, it was just like worried about making a bad drawing and oh, I bought this nice sketchbook and I want to fill it up with all these great drawings. That's a bunch of horse crap. It's like, don't do that. Just go out and draw.
Yeah.
That drawing, turn the page and make another drawing. Who cares? And eventually if for some weird reason you want to make a sketchbook with nothing but good drawings, you'll be able to do that. I don't know why you'd want to. But I think I told you there was a guy I worked with at Disney, Mario. He's a really great animator. And he had this sketchbook. I don't know why I saw it. He must have showed it to me or something. It was a pretty thick sketchbook. And I was going through it. And I'm like, oh my God, like every drawing in this book is amazing. Like every single one of them. And then he'd go into this technique and that technique, brush pen and this and that and observational and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I go, was this intentional? And he goes, yeah, I want to make one sketchbook that was every drawing was good.
Oh
Go,
wow.
what do you think? And he goes, I'm never doing that again. You know what I mean? Because it took all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
And it also takes all the light. I mean, I actually do think there's value in these things. I'm doing a lot of that right now where I'm going, you're going to finished work. You're going to, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm pushing myself. You know what I mean? I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone. Maybe draw or paint with things I don't normally do, just whatever. But I got to do that. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
I want to sit and just go, oh, I'm cool here. I don't want to be cool anywhere. I want to always get better.
Okay.
Okay. So does that answer all that?
Thank you.
Now, what's good about these also is you could probably just come in here and really simply for your lighting, because you were asking about lighting.
Yeah.
And just go, okay, where's my light here? Maybe there's some light there. And then maybe my core is running right around there. It's dark, but that's fine. And then maybe it gets darker as it turns under the form. I wouldn't do it that way. I'd do it this way. Turns under the form. And boom, I got a simple lighting scheme, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So then do that, like break them down, like you're starting to see. Now break them down and start to just simplify the lighting too, right?
Yeah. Okay.
The key here is simplifying. And this is a really good page, I think, but it needs.
Okay.
Buick or whatever this was. I want you guys to get used to putting like some call outs on there.
Okay.
And by the way, when you draw stuff, man, I don't know. And I think this is true for most people. You draw stuff, man, it sticks in your brain. So later on, what'll happen is you'll be able to throw down planes and cars and all that stuff. And you won't even think about it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
This is a nice one too. I like this detail of the motor. And you got these, I think these are tricky, the fins.
Yeah.
Like this is cool, the way it's going into perspective, and then this one, and then this one. Those are cool. Yeah?
Okay, thank you.
He's like, yeah, okay, enough already. I get it.
I'm just really bad at taking compliments.
The cool one too.
I was trying to just break it down.
Good. Break it down now, and then you don't have to later.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, about our next assignment, is it going to be the same thing again?
No, I want to start changing it up.
What are we working on?
I'll tell you in a minute. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
You got to get that mic fixed, man. Let's check. I want to look at this one here. Haley.
Yes,
What do you think?
I had fun.
This page looks really good. Yeah, you're picking tricky subject matter too. We talked about that last week, I think. Where were these at?
It was in Garden Grove. They were doing a car show on the main street.
Really?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Those are actually kind of cool to go to, those hot rod things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not a car guy, but I like drawing them. It's fun. I think I know where that is. That's that little, what's this? It's off of, I used to live in Garden Grove. Now this one, this is a nice setup. So now I could come in here. Damn it. And now I'm going to clean it up a little. Again, if this is shiny, I might get a little bit of a core there. Same thing here. And then I'm going to come in with my pen and start kind of lighting it a little bit and cleaning up. And see if I can come in here with my darker line and I can sweep over my lines that I already had, it starts to clean it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like these were probably, and even if they weren't, I'm going to make them that. You know, they're going to have like a core probably right down the middle, probably. This, fix that. I don't know anything about cars, so anything I have to make up, it's total BS. And I can come in here and I'm doing two things. I'm lighting and I'm also cleaning. Same thing here. I'm going to put that little highlight there. You already got that little core in there. Oops. You go a little harder on it. And then again, I'll probably come in here and find a few reflections in here. And maybe put a little of that over the front of it. Clean up this leading edge, because that's where it's going to catch the shadow, and this is going to catch light over here. And then maybe get a little indication. Were these slicks or do they have any tread?
They looked like slicks.
Okay.
I did that one towards the end of the day and it was really dark, so I couldn't tell.
Feels like okay, so again, these two tires relate to each other like a cylinder. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're placing them, remember they got to relate to each other. This one feels like it's starting to tip up a little bit. Yeah?
Yeah.
Ooh, this is a nice one. This back view. Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd fool around with that one. I think that's fine. Sometimes you like throw one down and you're like, it doesn't need anything. Oh, you know why, by the way, another place to go, you guys? Travel Town in Griffith Park or the Orange Empire Railway Museum. Those are bitchin' places to go. Yeah?
Okay. Okay.
I grew up. Oh, and then here, if this is shiny, it'll probably get a little of that. I don't like it hatched. Sometimes I'll do it that way. Let's try this. Maybe this is chromey, maybe. You know, maybe a little. It actually should reflect back in like that, but whatever. Oops. And then don't give me random marks here. What was there?
It was just the
Huh?
inside of the tire.
Was it spoked or was it solid?
It was kind of like the the star things where it just fans out.
Huh. I don't know
I
that.
don't know what to call those.
Another thing too, look at this wheel. The top is kind of doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give me some information on the perspective of how it's sort of on that, right? Because if it kind of goes up like that, I got to kind of get that feeling that it's, you know, like it's basically two cylinders or two ellipses like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, you know, always kind of think of that. It's basically two ellipses next to each other and you connect it, just like you do a drinking glass this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Plus, again, you're picking tricky. Ooh, that's nice. You turn this pretty nice. Yeah?
Yeah.
Watch this one. It's kind of to go down this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
This tire is going to relate to it over here somewhere. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now you can cheat it a little bit. You can show a little bit of that tire under there if you don't see it sometimes because it just looks good. But you got to make sure it's not, you got to make sure nothing is throwing that perspective off kilter, right?
Right.
Nice ones, nice balance there. This is tricky, this little hood thing. This is great, this one here. I think now it's just like go in and like go, okay, I'm going to come in here now and just sweep some of this stuff. If that's chrome, then I'm going to go. A little of that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here, a little of that. Little of that. Boom, we start lighting things up. You know, these probably have a little bit of, these are probably chrome. They could have been the car color, I don't remember. Same thing here. You can get a little highlight on those. You can see how it's starting to get some nice form there.
Yeah.
Same thing here, like here. I might come in here. Show some of that interior stuff. Maybe show that other, this frame is going to come over and land on the other side somewhere. I don't want it too dark. And then I might, you know, is there any specularity on here? Because then that'll push everything behind it in the interior, right?
Right.
And then here, you know, and then just come in and clean these up because you're laying down such a good foundation. Now this leading edge can probably get a little darker.
Mm-hmm.
Something in the wheel well or the hub or whatever, your whatever you call it, your perspective on this looks pretty good. Be careful here. This is a big rolling form. This comes out, down. By the way, I was looking at the car right after we had class last week. And I went out to get something out of my car. Should have took a picture of it today. And that, you know, just like we were talking about, the door goes up like that, and then it has that bevel as it goes towards the window. Bottom part was pretty warm. Where it turned, totally blue, right?
Right.
Because there was a big blue sky up above it. And then here, you know, get a darker value in here for that shadow. That's a nice drawing. Yeah?
Yeah.
So you see what I want you to do now, right? I want you to go in and like, bang, clean up those lines, really push it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because you're throwing down all the forms really nice. Okay.
Okay.
Like if I, ooh, that's a good one too. These are great, man. Same thing here. Do you guys ever see, you guys probably don't even know what AMC is, right? The car company.
No.
They made the weirdest cars, man, in like the 60s and 70s. And I don't even know how they stayed. I mean, it looks like Homer Simpson ran this car company. You know what I mean? I mean, literally, look, let me see if I can find one. They were like cartoon cars. Like, look at this one. Right? They had the weirdest cars. And they were pieces of crap, too. That's a gremlin. My mom had that. And they called it the gremlin.
It looks like one.
I know. It's like, who would, a gremlin is a thing that's bad. Like when motors, like they used to have these myths about gremlins would screw up planes and all that stuff. Much. Look at this. They look at this. They just look like stupid, like my mom had this car, man. It was a piece of crap. Look at that. Ugh. And then they had this one, the Javelin. He's trying to look all muscle card out. super weird. That looks better there. Anyway, they had a bunch of weird cars and they were all pieces of crap. I think actually Jeep is owned by AMC, but I think AMC is that company is gone.
Mm.
But like if you're ever going to do like cartoon cars and you want to have something, a starting point, go to the AMC Pacer or the AMC Gremlin. Because they already look at cartoon cars. Yeah, cool. All right, so I just want you to punch those lines and then watch this perspective because see this cylinder is tilting quite a bit, right? And this tire actually is sort of showing me that it's straight on. But this car is in 3/4 view, right?
Right.
So always make sure that the wheel or the ellipses are relating to where my view is, right?
Right.
Oh, you punched that one. Oh, this is cool. Yeah?
Yeah.
I love that. Look. They do these views all the time in car design. See?
Yeah.
Look at this one. It's a tricky view, man.
It's really cool.
These?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's really trippy? Here.
What?
So they do that, right? When they're designing cars. Hang on. Then they sculpt the whole design of the interior out of clay.
That is cool.
That's crazy, huh?
It's
Before
insane.
I know it's totally insane. Look. See, there's a clay car right there.
It's gigantic.
Uh-huh. These guys are a trip, man. These people that do this stuff. Look. A lot of clay. That's Chavant clay. That's one of my, I think I've told you guys, when I go in the Southside at Art Center, it smells like that clay. Resets my batteries. That's badass, man. And the first time I saw this, I had a temp job. This was before I was a designer or anything. And we, you know, we were going over to this place to I just help them do stuff. I don't know what we were doing, moving stuff around or whatever. And it was Mitsubishi's design studio. Like they don't let anybody in there. The only reason, you know, and it blew my mind. Like I'd never seen that before. So there was all these sketches on the wall and all these clay. They had a box with the clay interior in it. They were sculpting. I was in there. My job was on the floor. I'm like, you guys sculpt that by hand? It looks perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they would cast. This is before the computer is probably coming in, but they weren't really using it yet. And then they would or however they made them, they'd make models, full-size models of the car. So in this design studio, there's all these small clay models, there's interiors, there's full-size clay ones. And then they had real cars sitting there, and I'm like, oh, but then I got next to it and you could push the car over. It was just a big model. You know, it was super light.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing, man. And again, that's industrial design, right? It's very specific. It's transportation design. But, you know, like if you look at, and I've never looked this up, but I'm almost positive it's true. If you look at whatever that Batman movie was, where the what's that guy's name? Morgan Freeman is showing them all the stuff the company's making and all that. And that Batmobile that they designed in that, almost guaranteed that was a transportation designer designed that, right?
Right.
This is great. This one here, I want you to do more of that.
Okay.
Now be careful because you're telling me this. Oops. Oh wait, it is getting it. The light's over here, actually, right? Okay, so you could do that. This you could probably go a little heavier on, so it'll pull that visor in front of the windshield. And how'd you get this view? That's cool. Was it a convertible?
No, I just kind of like peeked through the window. It was
Wow,
the
that's
car that's
great.
on the bottom there.
I didn't even think of doing the interiors. I love those. I love those views. Those like sweeping around views of the interior, like we just looked at.
Yeah. The windows were open, so I was like, I'll just stick my head in.
Yeah, that's great, man. What'd you do? Just look up the car show online or something?
My dad found it.
Oh, good for
He,
him.
he was really excited.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a cool thing to do with your kid. He's probably into cars.
They
And
had
plus,
mini
man, if my
games
kid was
like
doing this, if my kid was doing this, it'd blow my mind. Especially if I wasn't exposed to it, I'd be like, holy smokes, like what? You know what I mean?
yeah. He was pointing at cars he wanted me to draw.
Oh, was he? That's cool. And by the way, you know, like at some point, this will become very much a stylistic point of view of your own. I'm showing you ways to clean them all up and everything. I'm not saying you always have to draw cars the way I'm telling you. It's a fundamental way of me telling you or showing you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you might come in and go, I like drawing them all like with a fountain pen, a little more arty looking. I like doing that. And that's cool. You know? I want you to have the ability to do both. Okay, so let's talk about this thing a little bit. Okay, so we started talking about this cafe to character thing a couple weeks ago, right?
Right.
Okay, so what I want to do here this week is I want you guys to really get rolling on it because I think we have about a month left. Okay. Did I talk about how I want the page laid out?
Not yet. No.
Okay. So it's going to be a page like this. It's 11 by 17. So 11 by 17 horizontal. How this starts is I want it to start from life. Right?
Right.
Yes.
I want it to start from life. And then, you know, you kind of develop your ideas and stories from life. Okay. I would probably make it easy on myself and pick people that are interesting, you know, that spark something in my head. And then just give yourself a simple backstory for this thing. It doesn't have to be some big novel. And then what I'm going to want is you know, just a simple pose here. That's your main pose, right? Don't give me, if you're an entertainment design person, do not give me tropes. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Don't give me, I don't know, it's, you know, it's pointy ears and it's whatever. Don't give me that stuff because I'm gonna look at that and go, you didn't even look at what you're doing. It should come out of what you're looking at. Okay. That person, when you're drawing people, and hopefully you guys are already experiencing this, if your brain's working, your brain just starts trying to make sense of who you're drawing in a weird way. Like when I'm drawing people, not everybody, but sometimes when I'm drawing people, my brain just automatically starts making a story for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the story might just be like, wow, that guy's a loudmouth douchebag. It might just be that. I don't want that story. Again, I went down this rabbit hole in this Russian guy, and he actually turned out to be Russian, which was super weird. You know, started just drawing him on the spot. And I wasn't doing it for any reason other than it's just fun. Or sometimes I just did one of Benton, right? Where he's a knight and all that stuff. I'm actually, I'm gonna do a bunch of those, but it was a painting, right? So I want the zero pose. And then some expressions here. Maybe 2 or 3, probably 3. I'm not going to give you an exact number. Whatever. And then a couple, maybe 2 or 3 action poses. That's how I want it laid out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then I want some sort of, now you can use on these kind of things, stuff we've talked about in here. Like I might go, and this is your final. It's not due till the last day of class. Yeah?
Yeah.
So right now, it gives you a little time to fiddle around with it. You know, you might use some sort of graphic technique like we did with the other stuff. Like a lot of times I'll do something like this to tie these together. That's really sloppy, but you get my point. I might put something around this maybe. And then I'm going to want some sort of presentation. Pick a better font than that. That stinks. Well, it's Milk Store, but it doesn't work for this. Let's go. Still don't like that, but I'm going to leave it. Put your name on it. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you're crazy. And that's what I'm going to want. Now, I might have showed you this. The only way I can find, let me see. This is the one that Josh did. He had a ice cream guy that would go down the street, right? There's his expressions, there's his pose, there's another pose. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, he did it. This is the thing about Josh that was interesting. Every project I give this guy, he would go way overboard. I mean, in a good way, right? So he didn't just give me the one page. He gave me more expressions I asked for, more poses I asked for, more, you know, he gave me a great zero, you know, this establishing pose here. Without his hat, this is great. With his hat. But if we laid these out on a page, it'd be perfect, right? And it was perfect. And he also did, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this one, when I gave him a believable animal project. And then he did two. And then he also did an acetate overlay of the whole bone structure of this creature. A bunch of stuff. You know, he did two versions of the product. And these are not digital. Right?
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's a badass. He went over to Art Center, but then I think he dropped down. I don't know why. Great student, man. And then he did his this is crazy. This. I have one in my office, the book. This was the portfolio he put together for Art Center. This all one story. Dude's a monster, man. Yeah?
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that great?
It's awesome.
And the book's like this thick, man. It's like a thick book. Because he told me, he goes, I'm getting my portfolio ready. I'm taking time off of school and I'm gonna get my portfolio ready. Sometimes when I hear that, I go, and I think I did with him, I go, you're never gonna do that. I go, just get your damn portfolio together and just do it. And he puts this thing together. He did it fairly quickly. And I go, okay, I was wrong. You know? Look at that. And the writer of this story, I think, called him out on Instagram, was like, that's awesome, you know? She assigned all the props. Did a render of the props. You talking about going down the rabbit hole, man. Look at this one. That's great. I love the way he sun bleached that guy out a little bit. On and on and on. Look at that. I think he kit bashed this together as I think as a like a maquette, like a model for his drawing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Jesus, it goes on and on and on. Puts everybody to shame, that much work. Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. So you want this to come out of your observational stuff. And kind of work it out there. Now, then you can kind of come in and start to develop it and all that. And again, let the situation sort of dictate where your brain goes with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, don't give me tropes. Like if I know you draw something all the time, don't give me that. Right.
Right.
Okay. Because I want to push you out of that. I want to push you out of your comfort zone. You need to push your own self out of your comfort zone too, by the way. Like I'm doing right now. What else? Okay, so then I'm also going to go and I'm going to go do this styling or designing from life thing. I should have that done by tomorrow, and it might have it done. I might have it edited by tomorrow if I get out early enough, or if not, it'll be like Monday or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now that I want running in the background because now. We're talking about stylizing from life. We're talking about designing from life. That's what you're going to do with this character thing. And you can also, once I get that out and everything, start playing around with stylization of where you're at, the environment, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if you're still kind of getting a handle on everything with stuff and everything, you can lean more on just observation. I'm fine with that, but you got to start your cafe to character thing now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to start seeing some roughs of that, and they could be super rough. They're not due till the end of the term, and just kind of see where your brain's going on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haley has to answer for everybody. Somebody always gets locked into that.
Yes.
Questions?
Yes,
There
sir.
you go. Do I have any questions?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So like how many pages do you want of this? Like stylization and exploring?
Well, I'm always doing my 4, but you could do more.
Okay.
I mean, you guys can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want. I'm going to do my standard 4, like I always do.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you only do 4. I mean, you can do more, right?
Right.
Like if I was going to do this project, especially after I just saw that stuff Josh did, I'd totally go down the rabbit hole on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I also like a meaty project that's like, okay, I'm being asked to get out of the thing that I always do all the time. If you want to be a designer, whatever it is, entertainment design, character design, an illustrator, you're not going to just sit around and do jobs you like. Yeah, I mean, but what you will learn to do is love the design process. So you might go, hey, I'm not that into this thing, but it's a blast to design it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to design a lot of stuff around like Mickey's Playhouse. I hated that show, but I had a blast designing stuff for it. Or Handy Manny. I wasn't really into that. Or whatever, there's other things. And sometimes they give you tough projects or you get to like, I think I've said this in here, that movie Up was a tough product project because it was like, you couldn't do, and it's really weird, by the way, because you couldn't do standard toyetic things. A lot of times people go into standard thinking when it comes to these kind of things. They go, oh, it's a it's a movie, so we do action figures and we do this and we do this. And you go, well, A, you shouldn't be thinking like that. You should be thinking specifically to the product or that particular movie. And B, if you got a laundry list of stuff that you just do, that's bullshit. You should not do that. You should look at it and design to the project. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And like that is a good case of Up, where I go, I don't want to do a bunch of product for this. And my boss goes, we have to do projects Pixar. And I go, I don't care. I go, it's not a good product movie. Oh, they're not going to want to hear that. And I go, I don't care. I go, what are we going to do? We're going to eat it like we ate it on Ratatouille? I don't want to eat the whole line. You know what I mean? It's BS. And then I gave him one option, which was like, I go, we can do backyard adventure because this whole movie's about adventure. We can do that. We can go back to all that fun stuff that you do outside. I go, if you want to do that as a point of view on the product, we can do that. I go, but I'm not doing standard product for this thing. It's not going to sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Ratatouille was the same thing. Great movie. Both of them great movies. That product was in motion before I got there. And when I came in, I was joking around. I go, what are you going to do? Linguini action figures? And my boss is looking at me all weird. And I go, did you do a Linguini action figure? I go, who the hell's going to buy that? You know what I mean? Nobody's going to buy that. It just falls into a crack that it's not, boys are going to go buy Captain Marvel or whatever. They're not going to buy Linguini. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's common sense. It's common design thinking. Like, never let your brain get into this sort of, standard thinking. And also when I was doing smaller toyetic things, and maybe sometimes you do like a promotional thing, and we'd have a meeting about it. And then somebody would basically go, okay, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And it's just stuff that everybody does all the time. And I go, is this really? I go, why are we even having a meeting then? Because we're not brainstorming anything. You're just going, there's my laundry list of crap that everybody does. I don't want to do that. I want to think about this particular thing. Right? That's being a designer, right?
Right.
Eric?
You are correct, sir.
You're supposed to do that with an Ed McMahon voice.
I'll work on it.
Okay. You can just steal Phil Hartman's. Phil Hartman used to always go, you are correct, sir, every time he played whatever his name is, Ed McMahon. Okay, questions?
I have a question, Mike.
Sure.
Would you still like these drawings on toned paper?
That's up to you.
Okay.
That's open too. You want to go on whatever kind of paper you like. By the way, I pick up papers. Drop my hooch bag. Like this one I just found, or I found it a while ago. Actually, maybe I'll take this out today. This is a Bee and Fang, and it's calligraphic parchment paper. Look at, it's all these cool colors. And it has a little bit of a parchment texture to it, or like look to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's cool.
And I got another one. Oh, here's a good one. This is going to look really cool. I don't know if you're picking it up, but it's real yellowy. It's cool. So I'm going to go do some portraits or, cafe sketching stuff. But I think I'm going to go a little more. Oh, by the way, I want to do a, shoot, maybe I got like 3 videos I can do for you guys. I want to do a graphite powder. I want to show you guys some stuff with that. Okay.
Okay.
And then I just got this one. Right, which is a mixed media paper because I'm doing a lot of painting in my sketchbook, but I'm going to try this one if I want to do a bigger thing. And these paper tears out of here. It's a mixed media thing, so I can paint on it. Watercolor paper, right? What else? And then I've got some sheets of some pads in the garage that are like big, and it's just called drawing paper. Like Arches has a drawing paper, it has a little bit of a texture too. It's also sort of yellowy. And then I got a bigger one that Jim gave me that it's a really interesting drawing paper. So I'm always playing around with all these different things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
because I like once you start knowing your materials and everything, it's fun to start playing around with different pens, different paper, whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different subject matter. Watercolor pencils. Okay, guys, I'm gonna let you go. Hang on, let me get a screen grab.
Can I ask a question too?
Yeah.
So, do you want us to like post, like turn in sketches of buildings and something building to like for approval or something?
No, I never said that.
Oh, sorry. It's just I'm trying to check over your syllabus for any details of the project.
It won't be the syllabus. The syllabus for me is an outline. Okay. This class changes. Hang on. Okay. Based on the group of people I have in it or things that I've just figured out. Okay. So I've only had one dud class in this class, which I attribute basically to one person. I like to adjust the class based on how good everybody's. This class has been doing very well. Okay. So I feel like I can sort of expand out. Now I'm expanding out into all these different media techniques and all that stuff. And then like my syllabus, if it has project listed on there, I might not do it in that order at all. I might do, because I want to roll things out as I feel like the class as an entity is absorbing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to be sure, what exactly are we supposed to turn in?
I just said what we're turning in. We're turning in sketches, starting of people where we're starting to stylize for this project. I'm going to put up a video of design on location. So whatever you're at, you're free to stylize. Doesn't just have to be buildings. It could be anything. It could be, if you're looking at planes, stylize them. Whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. Because I do want to move this into stylization at some point, which is now. Okay. Because when we're doing all this stuff, there's a multitude of reasons why you're doing this. Part of it is just the act of getting good at it and starting to learn to see shapes and all these techniques and all these things. But then, like I say with life drawing or whatever, when you go and do this, then you got to go and put it in service to something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because otherwise, like I said, I have friends who got stacks this high of life drawings, and I go, okay, what are you going to do with that? You've been doing that for years. What? Now what? You're not making any work. You're just doing that exercise over and over again. And I think and by the way, take this into your other classes where they're foundational. Okay. If you're taking life drawing, get really good at it and then start seeing how that relates to maybe character design or scenes or whatever it is you're doing. Those things have to move into, I always say that the drawing, sketching, drawing, all that stuff, then it gets moved when you start getting really good at it, starts getting moved into service to design. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
Yes.
You're filling up sketchbooks and what? And then what? You should always be filling up sketchbooks. That's great. But, experiment. I mean, to me, a sketchbook is an entertainment center. I mean, I'm never bored, ever. Okay. Because I go, oh, I got my sketchbook. I get all excited. I'm going to do some silly painting or whatever I'm going to do. Or I'm going to take it out and I'm going to do this week. I'm going to go just do a bunch of paintings on location or whatever. Okay. But it's every time I'm doing that, it's feeding my color knowledge. It's feeding my painting knowledge. It's feeding my drawing knowledge. It's feeding my shape language. It's giving me ideas. It's amazing. It makes me feel good, a million different things. But you always have to move these things. Just like I was talking about primitive shapes, nobody moved it into the real, which by the way, shaped the way I teach. Okay. Because I sat in classes like that and I go, I have no idea why I'm doing this. You know what I mean? And then I got out of the class and I go, okay, now I draw, and I didn't know this yet. Now I'm drawing all stiff. I have no idea why I did all these primitive shapes and all these other things. I have no idea. Why am I doing a contour drawing? Why? Oh, because that's what everybody does. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work. I had too many teachers, and I think a lot of people do, that didn't know how to draw, and that's why they didn't explain anything to me, and that's why they didn't take it into the real world, because they weren't really good at it. If you're going to do primitive shapes in a basic drawing class, go and draw buildings. They're basic shapes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're primitives. So anything you're doing from a fundamental perspective and all that kind of thing, take it into the real world. Okay. Take it into work. Don't just sit around. I said, I've seen this over and over again with life drawing, especially where they're just doing life drawing exercises where they're drawing the anatomy and they're drawing the muscle breakdown, which is all great. And then they just keep doing it. And then they just keep doing, and by the way, it should always be life drawing. But then when I take them to a cafe or, the proverbial cafe, hey, draw that guy. They can't do it. It's stiff. It's weird. They've never taken this thing they do in a very sanitized environment and thrown it into the real world. Go throw down a sketch, man, that looks cool and like says something about this moment and has vibe and feeling. And maybe you've caricatured it a little bit, whatever. You're doing something with it besides just cranking out reams of life drawings, which again, you should be doing. That's great. You should always have life drawing in your life, always. But it's got to be for something. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hang on, I got to get another screen grab. And it's pretty wide open now. Vehicles, people, stylization. And I want you to start working, obviously, on your character thing.
Mike?
Yeah.
I have 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
For the character or cafe to character sketches, like how would you go about like finding that character? Would you just like sketch a bunch of people and like stylize them and see which one fits?
No, what I do is I just go, because I do this all the time. That's where this exercise came from. When I'm just out and about drawing all the time, it just happens. Like I'm just drawing somebody. I'm not really, I think it's harder. I think I wouldn't look for it so much. I just find somebody who sparks my imagination, and also, I don't know why this is. It's weird because like if I go to the Block in Orange, I'm probably, and this is a weird thing to say in a weird way, but probably not going to find out many people that, I'll find some people that I think are interesting, but not as interesting if I go to the farmer's market on 3rd and Fairfax in LA. I don't know why. There's just a ton of interesting people there. Or Felipe's, and the reason I know why Felipe's is because you got a lawyer sitting next to a judge, sitting next to, and this is back in the old days. It's still like this though. Next to a guy who's in town because he's a clown for the Barnum and Bailey Circus, next to a homeless guy, next to, because there used to be a bunch of drunks that hung out back then in the 70s, next to a drunk who's managed to get enough money to get food, next to a housewife, next to a, on and on and on. You just get all these interesting people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's fun. I just went out, I think I told you guys, to farmers markets. I love drawing there. And a couple months ago or something, it was the first time I'd really got out in a while. Man, it was just so much fun. Like I was just like, man, there's just always fun people here to draw. It's an interesting area. Or, but you can find them anywhere, just like the one that sparked this idea. The Russian guy was at McDonald's here in the village, right? And it just went down the rabbit hole of, I wasn't thinking about it. It was just your brain, when you're, at least for me, it's not just when you're drawing people. If you see somebody or something, a lot of times, probably normal people maybe don't do this, I don't know. But when you're drawing somebody, your brain's naturally trying to figure out like who they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I just take that and I run with it, and I would say go out and sketch people and just, it's fishing. You can throw your line in the water, you'll catch something. Does that make sense?
Okay. And then I have another question. For the final piece, do you want it in pencil or doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. I don't want it digital, but I don't care if it's pencil, pen, I don't care.
Okay, so we could do like watercolors and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you want. But I want a drawing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then whatever you do over and above that, that's up to you. Have you used watercolor before?
No, it was just like an idea.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of I'm trying to think real quick. There's other because I don't go down the rabbit hole too much in here on color. What I used to do in here is I do a demo day where I demo acrylic and gouache and watercolor. But now I teach a Friday class that does that, so I just don't do it as much. And it's a little harder to do online. But usually when we're in class, I'll do that. But there might be, I'll have to think about this week. There might be a few like kind of simple color techniques or something. Maybe I'll show you guys. Yeah.
Maybe like monochromatic or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe monochromatic or, now one thing we've talked about this, but one thing I do, is I'll throw down a pen, especially if I'm doing it. I mean, you can do it for anything like this. Look at this guy here. Like this guy does a lot of just, I'm not sharing my screen, right?
No.
Am I now?
Yeah.
All right. This guy does a lot of stuff where he'll do the drawing and then he just goes in with ink or watercolor, whatever it is, right? So I do a lot of that also, where I'll just do pencil if I'm on, again, if I want to get it done quick. Like I like to go to Mariachi Plaza and do this, but and then I'll just throw down some black watercolor into a sepia, right? Like you could, if that's, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but like.
Okay, well, this I don't mind doing a demo of because I feel like this does fall into this class. So if you guys want, I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's another guy I think does this too on here. Same thing, right? Just full value stuff. That makes sense?
Yeah. You
I
just
use go ahead.
You just wanted like the character, right? You like, did you want like an environment with it? Like that's kind of like going
No,
extra.
I just want a couple, if you want to throw, and look, you could do, let's say the pose thing where there's a pose, maybe, there's a little vignetted background. You can do that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Right. I don't want it to become, I'm trying to keep it on track a little bit, and that's fine. What happens sometimes is like and I'm not saying it's you. Sometimes somebody will be like, I like doing environments. And then they just spend all this time in the environment and no time on the character. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm trying to, people, animals, all that stuff are really the holy grail of all this stuff in a way. But, if you can draw, it's just like life drawing, man. If you notice, like you take life drawing, it improves all your drawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just improves everything. Okay. That's why you do it. And that's why you should always do it. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So just remember, it's 11 by 17. I'll put this up. I'm here, and I'll put it up. I'll put the assignment up for the last day of class because it is the last day thing. And then I'll put up this week, our usual 4 pages, but it's wide open now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, one more question. Do you have any resources for like facial expressions or like?
Actually, I'll put them up. And you know what? I'll talk a little more about that next week. Is that good?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'll put up some, one that I would say is, I'll put them up. Yeah, and then I'll talk a little bit about it next week. Okay, because that'll time out about right. I'll try and get 2 videos up this week. Because I don't think the one I'm going to do tomorrow will take me all that long. I just got to edit it. And the same thing with the other one. I don't think it'll take very long. And I found out I'm kind of getting out of my own head here because like I said, I've been going, I got to go down to Orange to do things. Like, no, I don't. I can go do it right there. And the same thing with the dinosaur bones. I think they have them right down at the bottom of the hill at the San Bernardino Museum. So I'll probably just go there. And that one's going to be less crowded and stuff because I'm going to walk in there with like this stands and all this kind of crap. So hopefully they don't bother me. And I've been needing to do that anyway. And that relates right back to what we've been doing in an organic way, like we talked about. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
I think that's it. I think I got my screen grab. Wait, let me check the chat. I didn't do much today. Go ahead.
Oh, so this is like the last assignment, correct? So that we're going to be working on this for the rest of the semester, correct?
Yeah, cafe to character?
Yes.
Yes. You're going to be working. Okay, here's how I like to do it. I like to have cafe to character running in the background, and we're still going to cover other things.
Okay, got it.
Okay. But I want you, you know, to have a good solid month to work on it. And think about it and all that kind of stuff. And then you can bring it in here and go, hey, I'm kind of thinking this, and we can kind of go over it. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
And like next week, I just want loose sketches like I always do. But, you know, now, you know, start your thinking on this thing and what I put up, which is going to be starting. I mean, basically what we're talking about is we're starting to stylize everything we've already started drawing. Yeah.
Yes.
So basically that's what we're doing. I want to move it into stylization because at the end of the day, nobody's going to pay you usually to just go, oh, hey, copy this photograph. They're going to pay you to make things up and create things. And,
yes,
you know, that's what they're going to pay you for. So this, again, this class, as we get towards the end of it, is about that. It's about, okay, let's put all this stuff into service to something, right?
Yes.
And also, again, I want you starting to think about a process for research. That's really important to me. Too many people show stuff, and I probably said this 100 times. They show you stuff and you're like, you just made that up. Well, yeah, but it's cool. And it's like, no, it's not cool. It's not cool at all. You know what I mean? It's cheesy. It looks like you made it up. You don't have enough knowledge yet to do that. And even if you did have a lot of knowledge, you still have to have I have my illustration class right now is doing a project on an article, right? Editorial. And I'm really happy about it. They've all gone down the rabbit hole of all the research. And I'm going, this is the same process. If you're working on a film, a product, editorial piece, you have to have a very solid methodology around how you research and how you interpret that research. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So you need to put that into place now. I mean, when you walk into a college and you go, I want to do this, that's your first step, you know, or second step, third step, whatever it is. Where you start thinking like a professional. Okay. You start delivering on time like a professional. You start acting like a professional. You start thinking about what kind of career you want to have. You start putting the logistics around the kind of career you want to have. And you start thinking about this in real time, like real. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
I'm not interested. And I've seen too much of it. And it's something that drives me crazy is this, like, I just saw somebody, I was just in a meeting with somebody and she's like talking about, I don't know, animation or something. I look her up and I'm like, I can't find one job you've ever done. I can't find one piece of art you've ever done. The way you're talking to me sounds like you've never had a career, but you're acting like you have. And then what you're talking about, what you're teaching your students is horrible. You don't know what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
I want people coming out well-trained. You know, that's obviously the goal, right? And I think you got to know what you're doing. You got to have really hardcore skill sets. And you're not, you know, most people don't get that on their own. Most people go and get trained. Now, there's the exceptions to that, obviously. But most people, and by the way, when I was doing it, I loved being in an environment where there was these monster people who had monster careers, and I could just go to them and go, how do I do this? And they'd show me. It was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Especially in the world before the internet, you know? You guys have that advantage. You can look over almost any artist's shoulder you want to now, which is really cool, you know? And you should, okay? All right, any other questions? What's brony? Oh, I know what that is. Hey, Ernesto, you have Noodler's ink?
Yeah, I've got the bulletproof black, and then I've got the Massachusetts 54th blue black, and the black one, that's bulletproof. So it'll say bulletproof black.
But it doesn't melt at all? It's like super waterproof?
Yeah, once it sets, yeah, it's pretty waterproof.
I don't know how they did that. I can't figure out how they did that. And by the way, you guys, don't ever take India ink. Use fountain pen ink and fountain pens. You don't want, if you put India ink in there, it'll ruin them. It's got shellac in there. It'll gum it. It'll just freeze in there. And that's the end of the pen. Okay. Use inks that are formulated for fountain pens, which is fountain pen ink. Yeah.
Yes.
My coffee recipe is Folgers. Somebody mentioned it here. Okay. Okay, you guys. All right, you guys, I'm gonna let you go. I will see you on Friday. If you need to get a hold of me during the week, do it. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, I haven't done this that much this term, but if you guys need it, tell me if you need a midweek meeting or something like that as a group, okay?
Okay, got it.
Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do it in the middle of the week if I feel like it's a class where they need, they want to do that or something. And sometimes I'll just go, I'm going to be here on Wednesday, jump in or not. If nobody shows up, it's fine. If 20 people shows up, it's fine. I don't care. So sometimes I do that. So if you guys feel as a group you want to do that, let me know. Okay.
Okay.
All right, you guys. I'll see you on Friday.
Okay, thanks, Professor.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, you
Thank
guys. Good
you.
job. Really great job.
You can send